All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos, and I am joined by my friend and compatriot, Baselit Analyzer. How you doing today, sir?
Yo, what's up? Doing very well. How's everybody doing out there? I'm here on my southern vacay, so I'm glad to join you to talk about these two movies. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you're able to work me into your vacation schedule. As we see, you're in a little bit of a different studio than your backdrop full of your books. Where are you at right now?
I'm in southern Mississippi here with the Gulf right over there.
So, nice.
Yeah,
very nice.
Very southern, very hot, very humid here. So perfect vacation weather.
Well, you know, I made sure that I got you looking your best in the thumbnail. So I made sure to get, you know, your patriotic outfit, that your wardrobe that you posted the other day. So yeah. Shout out to the thumbnail maker. I do appreciate your work, brother. That is iPack Arts. Shout out to iPack Arts.
That's our homeboy. Yeah.
He's our homeboy. Yeah. He's helping us all out. So anyways, tonight is a sponsored stream. However, the sponsor of tonight's stream wishes to be anonymous. And I will honor that. And so we'll be referring to our anonymous sponsor tonight, but they wished that we look at this movie from 2021, which I was not aware of, which is called Bliss. And this was actually a movie you hadn't watched yet, correct?
Yes, this is pretty interesting because, you know, I consider myself a connoisseur of movies, I guess. I mean, I've seen just about every movie, and I hadn't seen this one. So shouts out to that secret sponsor out there, because this one was, it was pretty good, man. This one kind of blew me away. And especially with Owen Wilson films. I mean, I know Owen Wilson films pretty well. So this one must have slipped by in the post Karanka era. But it's relevant, very relevant
It was relevant, and it touches on a lot of themes that we're going to be hitting on today. Of course, we're pairing this movie with Limitless, a movie with Bradley Cooper, which probably more people are aware of and have seen. That one is from 2011. Bliss is from 2021. Both kind of deal with the idea or the use of substances that are perceived to be enhancing one's cognitive abilities. For Bliss, which is the movie we're going to start with first, Bliss looks at basically it follows Owen Wilson, who is working a very monotonous type job. Something bad happens. His boss sort of accidentally dies in front of him. He kind of jumps up quickly, and the boss falls back, hits his head, which again, we're going to cover all this stuff like we normally do. And then Owen kind of puts him up on the windowsill. His name's like Greg Whittle in the movie. You can see he's recently getting divorced. Life's kind of traumatic, boring, monotonous, kind of losing meaning. And this woman helps him deal with the situation of just his boss, technically being murdered or dying in front of him, or however he was associated with this. And then she starts giving him these magic crystals that help him activate his superpowers. And what you realize throughout this movie is this woman who's helping him is actually entrapping him into a sort of false reality. And so what he's perceiving is mixed with sort of subtle themes of the simulation theory. We have Bill Nye, Zizek's in this movie. And when they get to their fantasy world, when they take the blue crystals, these are the more potent form of the drug. Instead of having superpowers and being able to do all this different stuff, which we find out probably wasn't happening, although it's always associated with violence. We'll get into this. There's always something violent about them using those yellow crystals, but they get in this alternate world where everything's perfect. He's got this beautiful oceanfront property in Italy, and he's a doctor and she's a doctor. And what do they talk? Astro mining, genetic engineering, and what was the other one? Everybody gets $500,000 to live off of. It's sort of a socialist utopia.
Yeah, the UBI.
The UBI, and so that's kind of the theme of this movie. And then we find out eventually that they're both basically drug addicts, and she's kind of lured him into this false reality where he doesn't know what's real, the simulation, which is really real life, or this fantasy reality, which he's now believing is more real than reality.
Yeah, this one's interesting because it incorporates a number of themes and things that are not only predictive. I mean, at the time the movie's made, I'm not sure they're even predictive. There, it's just reality. But the movie is interesting because it plays into the meta reality of where the metaverse, right? We see the metaverse. We see the sort of Portland era autonomous zone in which they live, because there's this dichotomy between the elites and the poor people. And the question in the movie is what's real, and is it? This one's a mind bender in a way that a lot of mind bending, simulation movies are not, because it takes it like there are extremes here. So the question is, with the unreliable, usually in literature, you have the unreliable narrator would be the key sort of motif here. But with this, it's interesting because the camera, functions as the narrator. And so we're the reader or the viewer. And so we have to constantly question what is real. And when you realize that plays a role into, do we have sympathy for this protagonist or not? Because he's got this family relationship with his daughter going on, and you can see that she's one of the only reliable characters in the thing, but his mind is degrading. And is it drug use? Is it mental illness? Is it dissociation? Is it computer simulation? Is it all of the above? Is it some of the above and none of the other things? So this one was a really good film. I like that. And by the way, while we're doing this, I said this to DPH, but if my internet lags or my audio's off, or you hear bugs, because I'm down here at night in the southern Mississippi sun. So just bear with me, y'all, because I'm in my little outside deck studio looking at the golf. So
we will definitely bear with you. And then of course this was tied with Limitless. Do you want to kind of give the opening or describe Limitless? I'm sure that's the one most people are going to be familiar with.
Yeah, so Limitless is an excellent movie, I got to say. It's 2011, starring Bradley Cooper. And this movie, it's funny because at the time that it came out, one can watch this movie and see it on a number of different levels and watch the whole movie straight through without seeing any kind of figurative meaning in it, or with all figurative meaning. But really, this is a movie about the Adreno thing, in my opinion, because the graphics that are involved and the sort of the way that the film is edited when he takes this drug called NZT48, it unlocks his calcified pineal gland, and he's able to access, it's that old thing that they always say in movies. Did you know that we only access 20% of our brain or 10% of our brain? So he's able to access every part of his brain. Now, this also is a drug addiction movie.
Right.
But it is like this guy who he goes to great depths in this movie. So it's interesting how far he goes, including straight up vampirical energy things at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's crazy. And also what you realize when you watch it, it's not really a spoiler as if it really matters, but is that the good guy becomes the arch bad guy in the movie. And it's very subtle and you don't really realize that it's happening, but he goes from being a sort of semi-homeless, starving artist writer with a girlfriend who works in the finance industry in New York to becoming a guy who pretty much knows everything and can see everything. He knows about art. He knows about, he has, he's great charisma. He goes to the social functions and the parties, but then he gets involved in finance and hedge funds. And then he gets involved with really the top of the pyramid, the elite people. And that the symbolism in that serves to reinforce all of that. And the question becomes, does this guy have any morals? Is he doing the right thing? Is it self-serving? Is he serving others? And we're going to kind of address those as we go through it, I'm sure. But it's a really great movie. Bradley Cooper I like Bradley Cooper. He's excellent in this.
Yeah, I think, and it was a great pairing with Bliss. Like you said, both have to do with drug addiction, but two very different angles and very different movies on how that comes about. So, is there, before we start going through, because I want to go through scene by scene, I got both movies pulled up, so we're going to do a screen share so everybody can move through the film with us. Which one would you prefer to start with? I feel like maybe Bliss would be the one to start with, and then we can move into Limitless.
Yes, I think we should start with Bliss because that's what the secret sponsor wanted us to do, and because that sort of sets us up. I mean, Limitless really is the superior movie in terms of an all-encompassing film. So maybe we should end with Limitless. But Bliss is a great way to start out with this. So I think we should. Also, more people are going to know Limitless. So
yeah. Now, in regards to Bliss, so here are some of the clips from it. Here's, I guess, the Amazon Prime thumbnail here. Bliss is a 2021 American drama film written and directed by Mike Cahill. It stars Owen Wilson and Selma Hayek and follows a middle-aged man, Owen Wilson, recently divorced and estranged, who suffers a psychotic break when he is fired from an unhappy job. Befriended by a homeless woman, Hayek, he gradually falls deeper into what appears to be a drug addiction. He struggles to discern reality from fantasy. The viewer is left to question whether he's actually caught up in a layer upon layer simulation or whether he is experiencing drug-induced psychosis. The film initially aims to portray Wilson's character as an overworked divorced dreamer, lost and confused, while keeping a strained relationship with his adult children. It then evolves into an emotionally frenetic psychological storyline where the viewer is drawn along with the characters and left to decide what is real and what may be a simulated reality. It was released in February 5th of 2021 on Amazon Prime Video and received mostly negative views from critics who compared it unfavorably to The Matrix. Now, that seems like a poor comparison. I really don't associate Bliss with The Matrix at all. What's your general thoughts about that?
Well, I think that in general, what I've come to to understand is that, because I read a lot of these film reviews and analyses of the films, and generally speaking, movies that are revelatory or predictive tend to be, if they're not done perfectly in line or have a huge budget or cast, they tend to be maligned by critics because they don't understand the film that they're watching. But the secret is also that a lot of film critics don't actually watch the films that they're criticizing, or they watch excerpts. So I can see them saying, comparing it to The Matrix, because it's like, on the surface, there's a little bit of that because it involves computer simulation and it involves like changing landscapes. So some of the same things happen in The Matrix, but other than that, it doesn't really have, the comparisons don't go really that deeply. So
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't really get the Matrix comparison. But anyways, let's kind of begin to walk through this film. So it starts, here we go. It opens up, here we see the Owen Wilson character, and he's at work and he's drawing, and you can see some of these drawings here. And it's basically of this fantasy life that he wishes he was living. It's in again on the Mediterranean coast there in Italy. These beautiful little villa with a pool, with a place to sit out in the evening, and then you realize he's working a job for technical. What is it? It's when things go wrong. There's a particular name for technical support. It's like a technical support company, and so they're have to constantly be answering the phones and say, "Oh, I'm sorry for your difficulties," and then trying to deal with whatever the problem is. So you see, and then you hear his daughter call him and say that she's getting ready to graduate college and wishes that that he would attend. And he's like, "Well, I don't know if your mom going to want me." So we find out, okay, so Owen Wilson, he's in a sort of biracial relationship, that he's estranged, he's divorced, his wife hates him. And his daughter, not his son, he has a daughter and a son, but his daughter still has quite fond feelings for her father. And you don't really know what he did to draw this ire from his ex-wife, or because he says that it was his fault that the relationship ended. And so you're not really clear on how exactly he was to blame for any of this, but you see he's living a very monotonous life that isn't inspiring in any way. And then he's trying to refill his meds here. See, there's his daughter calling, Emily Whittle. And so we kind of are introduced to him in these opening scenes here. There's his children. There's his ex-wife.
Yeah, so there is one comparison with The Matrix here, which is that he is living in this this office space, drab. So even the aesthetics of it look like The Matrix at the beginning because it's kind of gray. It's slightly different, but it is gray. And he's drawing black and white pictures, of course. So that's what Mr. Anderson is doing at the beginning of the film, living in this sort of gray office world of.
Oh, that's an interesting comparison. I didn't catch that one.
But also his name is Craig Whittle, which is like, I suppose, the symbolism of the name. I mean, his psyche is being whittled away.
That's that's exactly what I took it as. Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say that. The first scene of this movie actually is pretty good because you get this sense of anxiety watching it, because he gets these constant phone calls in his office, and they keep saying, "You need to go in there and see the boss." And he's like, "I'll be in there in a minute." He takes like 7 phone calls, and he keeps doing stuff at his office. And it comes to a point where, like, you say aloud at the screen, you're like, "Dude, get up and go see the guy. What are you doing? You're taking too long." He also, it's interesting that, this is a real like 21st century relationship. And one of the things that it turns on a head is that we see the dad communicating with the kids, and the mother is absent. So it's sort of different than the normal, what we see in sort of postmodern film and literature or real life.
But he's clearly estranged from the family. So the kids are very close to the mother. And they sided with the mother with whatever exactly happened. They're not, the movie's never explicit on why they got divorced.
Yes. And we don't know yet why they're estranged, because he seems at the beginning like he's a put together guy. He's in a corner office. He's not exactly working in a call center. I mean, he's higher up than that. He's on the top floor.
He's not. Well, yeah, he's like a manager level in the call center.
And, but then, but he's drawing these black and white photos, which we're going to assume later on, you're using your powers of prediction with art. That something about the film is going to change. When a film starts off gray like this, it represents his inner state. And so it's going to be colorized later on. And what we're going to see is that gets, you're confirmed in that because the pictures become his reality later on. Also, the thing about drawing the pictures in this sort of Mediterranean landscape, I can't help but think that it's, number one, they like to use Lake Como, where Clooney has his mansion, as like the idyllic sort of setting for people on the up and up. But also you can't help but draw, almost like Roman, some sort of Roman comparison. Like once he makes it to the elite stage in the movie, that he will be living like a Roman emperor at some point in this villa, or at least there's some sort of Roman mythological comparison with this. Like he's going to transcend his drab reality and he's going to become some sort of god, which is actually what the film is about.
Right. And that's exactly what it has. It has incredible transhumanist overtones, although turns out it's a drug-induced fantasy that both these drug addicts are living in. But as you move through the film, you're not totally aware of that.
Right. Yeah, he gets a phone call or he calls the pharmacy to try to refill his prescription, and he's calling for like the 7th refill, and they end up hanging up on him. You actually see the bottle, and he's had some sort of injury, and he's taking Vicodin, and then the camera cleverly kind of pans away from him and looks at the outside, at the sky, because he's about to get high, because he crushes his Vicodin, he's about to snort it, and then you do see that. One small thing is like the numbers on the prescription bottle end up being the numbers that she punches into the safe and that are used as part of the experiment later on. So that's supposed to tie in.
Oh, I didn't pick up on that one. Nice catch, bro.
Well, it's supposed to show some sort of correlation between access to a greater, to a higher dimension or a different reality through the question is this through his drug use, or is it through the computer simulation that's going to occur later on?
Right. And I want to tell everybody, smash that like if you're still here. And guys, I need 2 more YouTube members so I can add another emoji. We got 3 new emojis here on YouTube for YouTube members. Check those out if you're a member. And I need 2 more members and I can add another emoji. Okay, so he's in this office here. One of this guy, you can tell he's kind of on the lower rung, sort of a call taker here. Busts into his office, starts pulling his drawings, looking at them, spills his coffee over them. You can see Owen's kind of he's getting pushed around in his life in multiple ways. True. His ex-wife, he's getting ready to get fired from his boss. Even the guys that are lower than him on the totem pole sort of, in a way, dominate him. It's not explicit or anything, but that happens. And so here's the scene where he's ready to just get his Vicodins. He's punching in the numbers, calling the pharmacy, like, "Oh, sir, you're gonna need a whole new prescription." Hey, shout out to Shaunaverse for becoming a member. God bless you, brother. Thank you so much. So this goes by, and throughout this whole thing, people are telling you, "Hey, the boss wants to see you. Hey, the boss wants to see you. Hey, you need to get up there." And then the boss is calling the secretary. The boss is calling him, saying, "Hey, are you on your way? On your way?" And so you can feel this like sense of urgency. He's trying to just get his prescription filled, but the boss needs to see him right away. So then he finally goes up there. He's walking up there. There we go. And here's the boss. Here's Jorn, right? Sort of Scandinavian name. Mm-hmm. And he tells him, "Look, man, like, have you even been taking phone calls? Like, your productivity has been terrible. And basically, look, we're gonna have to fire you. Your activity's been subpar." And Owen's kind of like in a daze. There's no emotional response. Like right here, he's told him he's fired, and he just kind of looks at him, and then he goes to like touch his shoulder here, and he jumps up, and the guy hits the back of his head right there, and he dies.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't know what to do. He's freaking out, and so he sticks him on the window here. He puts his sleeves of his shirt there on the sort of latches of the window, covers him up. The secretary says, "Oh, he's still not here?" He's like, "Nope, he's not here. I'm going to go take a lunch." And so he leaves the premises. And there you go. You can see the the name of that company. Technical Difficulties is the name of the company. Technical Difficulties. So again, not a real hopeful and inspiring place to work. And so
Also,
there's the boss.
Very weird that that guy's office also had black and white drawings on the wall. I didn't notice that before. But his artwork,
so totally colorless. Yeah, that workplace is totally colorless.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so here he goes into the bar to get a drink, and we see Selma Hayek over in the corner just staring at him continuously. And she then knows things that, again, this is where you as a watcher of the movie, you're not totally sure how all this is working out, because she knows what just happened in the boss's office here. Now, again, we find out they're both drug addicts, but you almost think, is she clairvoyant? Does she have some type of, psychic abilities or something of that nature? It's not explicit. So eventually she calls him over. He's like, I don't know you. She comes over. She makes it explicit that she knows what just happened and he needs an alibi. So he needs to come sit next to her at this booth. Here we go. Is there anything you want to add? Yeah, anything you want to add before? Because really the next important thing is grabbing those crystals from her boyfriend, who really is not her boyfriend. He's some type of chemist or something who's making the drug that she's getting ready to get him addicted to.
Right. So that will occur again in Limitless. And also window symbolism in film is always important, because it almost always serves as a symbol of the psyche, right? So we've got the house or the windows functioning. It's the same in literature. It functions as like the character's state of mind and where they are in the narrative.
And this one almost looks like a jail cell. Look at the bars on the window.
It does. So on a literal level, we know that they're in a dive bar and that they're probably in some sort of, in the midst of gentrification, a neighborhood where these kind of warehouses, are located in urban areas. And so we've got the tech center on the one side in a new, refurbished warehouse. Then we got a dive bar on the other side. So there are windows on the ground floor. But in the other scene, we have what looks kind of like bars on the windows, where he puts the guy up into the window. But it's just the window frame. Here we have literal bars on the window. So he's descended from the building. He's gone into the bar across the street. He's crossed over to the other side, and now he's locked in. And we're meeting Salma Hayek. Like you said, we don't know what her function is yet in the movie, but she does sort of serve to like speak for what we, the audience, are thinking, which is, what's your alibi? How are you going to get out of this thing? This thing just happened. How are you going to prove that you didn't kill the guy in the office, because he was clearly going to fire you, and then you just walk out? So she's going to kind of guide us through that. And another thing is that a lot of these movies that I'm seeing recently and that I've been reviewing, especially like with Black Mirror, we always have a guide to the underworld, and we've got somebody they're guiding. So it almost becomes like a Dante's Inferno, because she is clearly like almost like a Virgil character. I know that sounds like a kind of a stretch, but she's going to guide him through the underworld of drugs and through homelessness in the city, but also through the underworld of his mind. And she kind of looks like a bruja right here. Like she's got dreadlocks. She's all kind of nasty looking. So,
she got, these big tattoos on her breasts. She kind of you can tell maybe she is homeless or a witch or it's, you can't really put your finger on it, but like a bruja. I like it. So he's astonished that she knows what's going on in his life just now. Obviously he's frantic. That's why he's over at the dive bar taking shots of whiskey. And she's like, hey, if you need my help, I can help you. What you need to do is get these crystals from my boyfriend who's in the bathroom, and then I'll solve your problems. He's like, you'll solve my problems. Okay. So he's willing to, and there's his boss. They can both see him through the window. And so he goes to the bathroom. She's explaining that she'll help and there it is. There's the guy. He's laying there. You can kind of see the yellow crystals in this little container. She's like, oh, I have to have this necklace. I have to have this. Go get it from him. And so this guy, what you see him is passed out or something. Again, eventually you're going to realize that this was all a setup, and that this was all a deliberate thing. So he then takes the vial of crystals, goes back out there, gives it to her. She's like, "Oh, that's fast. Thank you. Did you get his wallet?" No. Okay, we'll go get his wallet. So he goes back in there, gets the guy's wallet, comes back out, and is finishing his whiskey. And then she puts one of the crystals in his whiskey when he comes out. And now she had taken one as well. So now what she's getting ready to do is demonstrate to him these sort of magical abilities, how she can make dishes and people trip. And she keeps highlighting that the only people that she can affect are the ones that aren't real. And so she keeps convincing him that he is a real person, she is a real person, and certain people in this simulated reality are real people. But the ones who aren't real, she has magical abilities to influence, to manipulate, to trip, to harm in certain ways. And so he begins, again, he doesn't realize that she's already drugged his whiskey. And so you can see the lighting's already changed in the movie, right? You can already see it's a little bit lighter now. And she is helping him because she is turning, this light up in that office. So you can see it right here. And it turns up to the point now, again, this dead body somehow heats up. So that's where I was confused. How is he sweating if he's dead? I'm not exactly sure how that works. Yeah. But he then somehow moves these levers and his body falls out of that window. So it looks like a suicide. And this is his get out of jail free card, basically, and how she helped him. And he sees all this, and now he's convinced of her magical powers.
So he does get defenestrated, and actually that also occurs in the Matrix, right? He's asked to go outside onto the window ledge to jump out of the building, and then he doubles back inside the building. That's when he gets his mouth frozen shut. Also, it's funny that this is in an industrial area, but there are twin pillars between at the entrance to the twin pillars behind.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So it's almost like a temple, right? Or Iakin and Boaz or whatever.
Yeah.
And also the way that he took the crystals, and the crystals are like, I mean, this is like pure. Shouts out to Jerry at Exposing Powerful Lies. Like they're ascending, bro. They're taking the starseed crystals here, and
shout out to Jerry. We love Jerry.
She puts them around her neck like a talisman,
right?
And now she's gonna lead him through here, yeah. And so, right. But the question here at this point in the movie is, what is real and what's not? Like, did any of this even occur at all? Right? Was he just in the bar already? Did none of that occur? Did he just walk out? What's this woman? Did he know her before? Does she have these powers or not? And how is she making him like fall out of the window?
Right. So as a watcher of the movie at this point, you're like, okay, something's going on with these yellow crystals, these magic crystals. She is able to manipulate reality or the simulation, and she keeps convincing him that they're in a simulation. This is a simulation. None of this is actually real.
Right.
And watch as we move through here the appearance of Owen Wilson. She basically stays the same, but right now he's got his hair combed over. He's got a sports jacket on, a button-up shirt. He looks like a successful guy. Just within days, you're going to see he moves into the appearance of a homeless man, a drug addict, but he doesn't realize it himself.
Yeah, I can't help but his character in this, and actually Owen Wilson in Midnight in Paris, which I analyzed, he looks, this won't mean anything to anybody in the audience, but one of my best friends looks exactly like Owen Wilson. He had the same sort of job. He has his hair the same. He has a kind of a chilled out mentality. So I don't know. I guess I relate to him when I watch this.
Well, and you mentioned something, again, I don't know if this is too much inside baseball here, but we got BLA with us. It's interesting that they chose Owen Wilson for this role in this particular movie, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So Owen Wilson, it's funny because Owen Wilson and Bradley Cooper are two actors when I watch in movies where so the inside thing is there's Bill Nye right there. So
holding a big sign that says science.
Yeah.
Science.
So everybody knows that, film is about, you go to movies and you see if you go to the movie theater, you see a close up, and that's like an actor's bread and butter. The more powerful you get as an actor, the more successful, the more you write in your contract that you want close ups, because it's focused on your face. And this is why actors who play roles in masks, like Tom Hardy in Mad Max, and when he played Bane, it's seen as like a risk in a movie because they're hiding their face for most of the movie. So that's why Tom Hardy has that scene in The Dark Knight Rises where he takes his mask off for 5 seconds. But also because this is like where people see actors as stars, or almost like some sort of Babylonian gods, because they're larger than human beings on a screen. But the thing with Owen Wilson and Bradley Cooper that I like is that both of them they have a thing in their eyes where, and I'm just saying this because I was an actor, that I believe their characters when they're the characters that they play in these movies, because they seem to be genuine. And just, knowing the backstory of Owen Wilson, and also Bradley Cooper, by the way, who has a similar backstory, which is strange. But Owen Wilson, most people forget that Owen Wilson in 2008 was supposed to be in the movie Tropic Thunder. And maybe it's a rumor, but it's in mainstream news. He was supposed to be in Tropic Thunder, but he dropped out of the film because apparently he was suffering from a heroin addiction and attempted suicide. So he had to drop out of the film. And then when I remember that and I watch a film like this, what I like is that he's not a comedic actor trying to like get, gravitas by playing serious roles like a lot of other actors do. Like Adam Sandler tried to do that for about 10 years.
Right. Mm-hmm.
He's actually an intellectual actor and writer who is a real person in real life, but plays the movie. And then when he plays a role like this, I tend to believe him. Now, I'm not trying to like idolize actors. I'm just saying that I like him. Yeah, I like him in this movie because I believe that this role in him. Now, I'm also aware that I'm watching Owen Wilson, in any movie, but I do believe his character in this. Bradley Cooper has a similar backstory, by the way, which we'll get to.
And one of the things that connected both these films for me, obviously I'm in a very different place in my life, but in 2011, when I watched Limitless, that was right at the sort of a year into my psychonaut journeying. And so when I watched Limitless, which we'll get to next, and this movie with these yellow crystals, it made me think about the way that people who really venerate the use of psychedelics as these escapes, as this movie talks about the brain box, right? The psychedelics break you out of the program and the brain box, if you will. That when I watched this, I couldn't help but think how me back then as 23, 24 years old, how I could be sort of caught up in a sort of drug fantasy, the idea that I take a pill or I take something, I can become cognitively limitless in the case of Bradley Cooper's character, or in this one, like supernatural powers. You can see things that people can't see. You can realize, the simulation and all this different stuff, that it really has an appeal. And that's where the psychedelics and that whole psychonautic culture, and all the presuppositions go back into this film, the idea of astro mining and UBIs and socialist utopias and genetic engineering and transhumanism, all these things, that it sort of all coalesces together. And for me, now I'm like totally rejected that. But this movie, Bliss, presents it all together where it's kind of very appealing, especially if you're in that phase.
Yeah. The other thing is that to keep in mind with this is that the buying of the crystals seems to be a metaphor or a cover in the first place in terms of their drug addiction. I mean, like, because drug addicts who become homeless aren't addicted to psychedelics. They just aren't. Right. They're clearly buying. So the crystals are clearly like, honestly, genuinely a methed out vision of them buying crystal methamphetamine. Or, are they buying crystal meth? Are they addicted to, I don't know, is this heroin or, something? But it's that they've gone on. Shane Gillis, the comedian, said that growing up in Philly, he would often witness heroin addicts who their life consists of side quests, right? Because all they do is go on these quests looking for the next fix. And that is pretty much what they do in this movie. So it becomes the drugs themselves become like this amulet that they're looking for.
Yes, and the point. I loved your point about the side quest, because that is kind of the way this movie Bliss takes this forward. Clearly, I was not um, explicitly associating the yellow crystals with psychedelics per se,
Yeah.
although it has sort of psychedelic features. As soon as they take it, they can see things, they have these abilities, and you're not sure what's real and what's not real. And I think that's where the psychedelic, but also the hair on any drugs, right?
Yeah.
You can kind of get lost into these fantasies. And it is very much like, it made me think later, about halfway through this movie, like how many heroin addicts you walk by are in, this brilliant Italian place where they view themselves as like some doctor or something, like literally living a totally alternate reality, as we'll see these people do. And they see, Greco-Roman statuary of various entities, and then in real life it's just like a plastic doll on top of a trash can.
Right.
And it's like, man, how many people have I walked by that may or may not have been actually in a sort of reality like this, or an experience like this?
Yeah, and these two characters also are, clearly have had this psychic break where the side quest and the mental illness has like coalesced into this point where they clearly are seeing, at least if they're not seeing these things, then we are seeing through their eyes.
Right.
The other weird thing is that the next movie is much more about the thing I don't want to say, but there is a weird thing where in movies where that's dramatized, it always does have the same color and texture, which is this kind of amber, this like golden amber sort of liquid. And then here it's in pill form. Now, I don't think that's what they're going for, but they do end up in the circles of people who that they do that. So
yeah, great point. Yeah, I'm like you, I make more of a sort of heroin or methed out sort of connection with it, that has sort of psychonautic aspects to it. But that definitely applies much more so to Limitless and that substance, which is colorless. But we'll get to that here in a few. Now, I want to give people a little context for this scene here. Is that Owen Wilson left his wallet at the dive bar. And she keeps telling him, oh, don't worry about it. Just leave it. Like, you got to get out of there. You got to get out of there. And he's like, what? I thought he just committed suicide. So aren't I good? And this, looking back, once you get to the end of film, you can see what she was doing the whole time is he wasn't fine. The suicide never actually happened. And she has been manipulating his perception. The reason why he had to leave his wallet is because they can't go back. The cops are coming and he may be implemented. So she takes him to a pawn shop and he doesn't really know what he's letting her basically lead him, because she's done these magical feats in front of him. And she takes his iPhone and is like trying to pawn it off. Hey, will you give me $60? He's like, well, I need an ID. Okay. He doesn't have his ID. What about 40? No, I still need an ID. What about 10? Okay, I'll take it. So they got $10 and you're thinking, man, $10. But it makes sense once you realize that this whole process is that she's a drug addict.
Yes.
And she's getting the money so that they can get more drugs.
Yeah. Yeah. They stop off at Pawn Stars in Las Vegas and who wouldn't take the thing without an ID.
And so you see on his phone, what do we see? His kids.
Yeah.
He has a memory. All this stuff is, as the movie goes along, slowly being taken away from him, right? His wallet is a symbol, I would say, for his identity. He's lost, again, a piece of his identity, a piece of himself. He lost his key to his motel room. Now he's pawning off his phone, which is his connection back to his children. He has all these memories of when his little girl was a little baby girl right there, and these little memories. And so she then sells his phone.
This is really important because I've mentioned this a few times in things I've covered, especially with the most recent Black Mirror series, which is that one thing that's happening more and more with technology, especially with the memory box that you carry around in your pocket all the time, is this external memory syndrome, where because your brain knows that you have an external memory depot for you to place all of your memories, your brain tells you that you don't have to remember them. And that gets amplified with him because he's had this psychic break and he's unable to remember his past, and he's still got him on his phone. But once that's gone, it's like it totally disappears. That occurs all over Black Mirror, and that occurs in real life.
Great point.
Yeah, and the other thing is that the phone itself, is a black mirror.
Yeah.
It's like a scrying stone. You can see your
Yep.
future, you can see the memories from your past. And also with another thing with Black Mirror, that the series that I just covered, that the new season, is that there's this weird thing that's happening where your entire life is a notification, and it's really sad. I mean, I was just with some people the other day, and someone literally got a notification on their phone that someone they'd known had died. And to me, it was very synchro, bro, because I just covered this, but it was like, oh, did y'all hear that so and so just died? And that's it. Their entire life and their death becomes a notification on a phone. It's very bizarre. So
Right.
people's lives are being slowly, and this movie kind of shows that.
Well, and maybe that's to give the movie a little bit of credit. Maybe that's an interesting critique, or at least a subtlety in
Yeah.
relationship, or maybe we're just reading it into it, but that there is a sort of false reality to the real reality itself, right? So she's getting ready to pull him into a more false reality, a drug-induced hypnosis or
Yeah.
fantasy. But even the reality that he was living, this, again, monotonous job, and the black mirrors, his computer screen, his phone screen, there is a sort of certainly a negative quality to it all, where it is maybe a false simulation to some degree or another.
One thing to keep in mind is that this always happens in movies like this. I mean, this movie has a holographic Zizek and Bill
Yes,
Nye all over the movie. And so you wonder if you're
which
going
is
to put
total propaganda and programming, because Bill Nye's
it is.
always associated with the epitome of what a scientist is, right? He's going to get her eventually into Nature. I'll publish your article in Nature. You'll be famous.
Yeah, but my question is, don't these people see that when they're going to be put in a movie, they don't bother to read the script, right? Someone tells them what the script is about. But the interesting thing is, most of this movie is clearly a critique of all this stuff. And yet those are the people propagating it. So there's this divide
Right.
between the people who see this as a critique, and they clearly see the negative effects of it, but the other people use it as a guidebook.
Right.
It's just like Brave New World. Brave New World seems to be a critique of the hellscape of the future, but it's a guidebook for these people who designed the thing.
Right. Exactly. Okay, moving forward. So he sells his cell phone for $10, and now she is taking him back to her lair to hide out, which we find is underneath the highway. So here we see these dummies, right? These trash cans and these human dummies. You'll see eventually when they take the blue pills, these will be transformed into like Greco-Roman statuary. But then what you may think is real, again, as you watch the movie chronologically, but then later when they're freaking out, you realize, oh, that's what they were walking by. That's what he was seeing that whole time. So she's taking him to her lair, and she's like, oh, welcome to my home. And this is this little tent city she has. She has off the grid electricity. So she's got a TV and a fan and all types of stuff. This is
Which
her
is
plant.
absolute reality, by the way. You see that in San Francisco and New York all the time. People are in an easy chair by Madison Square Garden and are, high on fentanyl and have a PlayStation hookup. I mean,
are they ever explicit what city they're in? I just assumed it was LA, but I don't know if they're ever explicit in what city they're in this movie.
No, I don't know.
So anyways, okay, so you see it's daytime. He's still dressed like a business guy, and she's basically saying, look, you're going to need to stay here for a couple nights just to hide out or so. And so now it's nighttime. He's more relaxed, got a t-shirt on now. No foul play, right? Bjorn Pedersen, case closed, suicide, no foul play. So now she says, oh, looks like, or he says, look, I'm off scot-free. Yep. And so he acts like he's getting ready to leave. And she's like, well, that's it. Maybe I enjoy your company. And he's like, well, and she had a fire. He's like, you cooking something? Yeah, I'm getting ready to cook some food. Okay, well, I'll stay with you. And so then they have some more drinks, and she starts teaching him this magic, right? So you can tell they were both on the drugs. And she's like, oh, you see, you can light the candle. Again, that's what I'm showing you here. With just your finger, right? You just have to imagine it, and then you can do it. And so that's what she's teaching him. And so now he's believing that he can do all these things that she can do too.
Which is very Aleister Crowley.
Yes.
Initiation level, they're going to get to making yourself invisible, which Crowley walked out of his court hearing and claimed that he could make him, and maybe he could. I don't know. But also notice that everything starts to get warmer and illuminated, and that they're around the Brucha fire. She gives him her magic potion, right, and starts initiating him into the occult rites.
Right. And so she starts asking him about some of his drawings. So he pulls his drawings out, and she's looking at them. And she's like, oh, wow, I'm very impressed. And then she sees the one of the woman that he drew.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, well, don't you know that's me? And yeah, obviously for the movie's purposes, it is clearly a picture of Selma Hayek.
Right.
And she's like, that's because we're soulmates. We finally reunited again. Don't you realize? And he's trying to think about, like, how is this woman that I've been drawing during work? Again, he's divorced, single, monotonous life. And then the woman that he's drawing of his paradise life, now he has, quote unquote, found her. And she's like, oh, I've been looking for you too. And basically the idea that they're soulmates, they're in love, and they're finally together. And she's like, don't you understand? It's time for you to kiss me. And so now his daughter is concerned because she can't contact him. Again, he just sold his cell phone and all this different stuff. She's going over to her brother's house where he's smoking a joint, and he clearly doesn't have much sympathy for his dad for whatever reason. Yeah. He makes a point about how, oh, yeah, you mean our dad that says he's limping one day? Oh, what's wrong with your ankle? Oh, XYZ. Oh, it's my shoulder. Oh, it's my thigh. Oh, it's my knee. And basically saying my dad's weak. He's always complaining about something. He always has some excuse for something.
It's also saying that these are the beginnings of each time my dad went to go buy drugs. Right. Oh, his shoulder hurt, so he had to go find drugs, or his leg hurt. It's just a more side quests that he probably realizes as he got older that his dad was using all this stuff as a ruse. Right. I gotta say, I really felt for the son and daughter in this movie. I don't know, felt for them, but I really liked the daughter in this. And
the daughter, she was a very sympathetic character.
I really wanted her to find peace with her dad because she was genuine, and she was
the only one that really cared.
She really cared.
She was the only person in the film that really cared about somebody else but themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that's why she was such a sympathetic character. Yeah. So anyways, the brother, he's smoking a joint. He's basically saying, I follow mom. I only care what mom has to say, screw dad, which is quite symbolic in regards to the feminizing forces in society and the whole power dynamics. Again, the inability for men to kind of be traditional role models. And so he failed to do that. And you can see the after effects with his own son. And so the sister is asking him, look, please, you got to help. And he's like, no, I'm not really interested. And so she ends up leaving and decides that she's going to do it herself. Wisdom, Tupac wisdom. Yeah. So next thing we know is now we're at a skating rink, and here we see Owen Wilson and Selma Hayek. And this is the point I wanted to make in regards to the way they're dressed. So she's now giving him the crystals, and he's loving it. And look how he's dressed now. Again, you can see he's kind of moving into that homeless look. They're skating around at the skating rink, and because he took the crystals, she took the crystals, now they're able to affect people in the skating rink. They're able to trip people who are being mean, right? So here's an instance of that. So you're like, oh, wow, maybe she does have real magic or something's going on here. Hard to tell. And so they're skating around. Then they make love in the bathroom. Yeah. And then they steal people's clothes here. And there's a really strange part in this scene that makes you start to think this is where you get the real. I mean, clearly you can tell by the way he's dressed. But but when they leave, again, they're dressed like these people, right? And they're leaving and they're getting ready to run to the sidewalk. See these cop cars here. Well, actually, the cops are there to arrest them. And so he looks back and he sees the person being put in that cop car is him, and the person being put in the cop SUV is her. But at the same time, they're outside wearing the clothes that they just stole from somebody else. And so they're looking at themselves. And then he sees himself looking at himself.
Yes, they've clearly dissociated. And
yes.
Hey, man, their love is transcending their ability to be busted, right? Because they put on these different clothes, and because she's wearing the bruja hat. But they always wear that hat, by the way.
Yeah.
And also in the skating rink, it's like they're just going around and around in their life in this sort of eternal return, right?
Oh, good point. Yeah.
And the mirror ball is, I'm probably going too far with the symbolism, but the mirror balls are always weird because it's fractured pieces of mirror unified on this one planet thing, and light is refracting off of it. And, so they're going around and around and they're not accomplishing anything. And then they end up going further into the inferno because she's taking him on the journey through the underworld, right? It started with, I'll give you the alibi. Then it was the drugs. Then it was the pawn shop. Now it's the skating rink. They're going to have fun while they're high or whatever. And then they're going to sex in the skating
in
rink.
The bathroom stall.
Yes.
Anyway, so now from the viewer's perspective, you just saw them both on the sidewalk, right? They just ran out of the skating rink wearing other people's clothes that they stole. And then they saw the people get in the car, which was them. Now you see Owen see himself in the car, but now the view changes and you realize they're actually in the car. Like you were saying, the dissociation, because when he looks out, these are the people that are on the sidewalk, clearly not them, and clearly two homeless people. And there's their homeless tent and their shopping cart. But again, you thought it was them for a second. So now you're like, okay, I guess they are in jail and they get their stuff back. And she's just like not fazed by anything.
Yeah.
And you can see him sort of adopting this mentality as well. And so now they're out of their yellow crystals.
Yeah.
And so it's time to get some more. You see his daughter has gone to the hotel or the motel that he was staying at. She's looking for him. She's very concerned about her dad. Yeah. She's looking for him. She's doing everything she can, going to rehabilitation centers, going to, again, any place. Well, now they're walking to this chicken sandwich place or fast food right here. And she tells him to get her a sandwich. And so she said she'll be in there in just a minute. Well, what does she do? She walks over here to where the prostitutes are.
Yeah.
And tells one of the girls to back off, starts talking to the guy in the car, and then she gets inside.
Yeah.
Clearly, she then is prostituting herself for money. That's how she gets her drug money.
Yeah.
While
he goes to Los Pollos Hermanos to get a dollar menu chicken biscuit while she's tricking outside in Matthew McConaughey's Lincoln. Hey, he's a Lincoln, right? So she's tricking outside. By the way, they were just chilling outside the police station, right on the steps, right there. Like you said, this is normal for them. Being picked up for vagrancy or whatever it is just normal for them. And then the sign in the background said, "In the world of hunger," which is going to occur later in the movie because the simulation is going to teach them to try and solve all the world's problems through the coupon.
And so here his son sees his dad. Yeah. The dad doesn't see the son. And so you realize, again, as a viewer, you're thinking, man, he must be really deep into some sort of drug addiction or something. Yes. He's not even aware of his surroundings. And he goes to buy a sandwich and he only has $2. And it's like, dude, how do you not know you only have $2? You just got it from the police in the police station. So he's clearly high. Yeah. And there he is. He just doesn't have enough money to buy a sandwich. So he just goes to the back of the restaurant there, the fast food joint, and he just sits on a crate. And she, you can tell hours have gone by because the sun is basically getting ready to set. Guy feels bad. One of the workers and comes and gives him a sandwich. And here she comes back after tricking out there.
Yeah. They're about to have a homeless, meth argument, by the way, where she gets mad about nothing. Also, the
Yeah.
archways, the archways, you clearly see that the architecture is going to be mirrored in the later classical architecture. So
Good point.
it's hellscape Portland hellscape version of what's later going to be the elite Roman villa or whatever.
Stranded 360 says, "Don't mess around." That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Don't mess around.
Yeah.
So okay, so let's try to quickly get to really the blue pill, the blue pill portion. Okay, so we pretty much set the scene here. So, anyways, now they're left. We see that she's tricking. They're clearly on some type of drug addictions going on here. She's not as magical as you think she is. It's hard to put your finger on what exactly is going on. But she says she's got to run over here to meet a friend real quick. So she runs upstairs, and what she's doing is going to get more of those yellow crystals from this Asian guy who was the boyfriend lounging in the bathroom at the beginning when he went to the dive bar, right? Remember that's what we were talking about. So now we see this guy is the one that somehow is making these crystals.
Right.
And she's like, look, I need more. So she takes the money, basically the money that she was just hoeing for, get some more crystals. And he's out here waiting for her. And you see a guy comes up asking if he wants some meth or heroin, and then like offers his ass to him for sex. Again, we're going to get through that. So we see, okay, some shoddy things are going on the streets over here. And then we see his daughter show up. So his daughter is like scanning the streets, and she finds her dad, and she goes up to him, and he realizes it's his daughter, and he's talking with her, and she can tell he's not right. He's on something. She's like, come home with me. Come home. Let's go right now. He's like, oh no, I can't. I'm waiting for my friend. I can't leave. And so she's upset, and she can tell that she's not going to be able to get him to come home. She's again, Selma Hayek's getting jealous because she sees this woman out here talking to him.
Yeah.
And so the daughter gives Owen Wilson a picture of her and writes on the back of it her name and her phone number, which is a pretty sad state that your own daughter has to write her name and her phone number for you. I mean, phone number, maybe. We don't memorize phone numbers anymore. But so he takes that and puts that in her pocket. Selma Hayek is watching. There's the picture. And she is very upset and jealous, and she starts yelling at him. They need more crystals. This guy who just, again, was offering meth and heroin now pulls up with a gun in the passenger seat of this van, telling them that he's going to need something. So Owen then says, okay, I need the crystals. He takes a couple of these yellow guys, and all of a sudden now you can see he can like lift the van up, and he can crush the van and kill these guys, pulverize these guys. And then he throws up. And then she wakes up the next day.
Stranger Things. Stranger Things season 2. They can move the van, and the guy didn't like him, encroaching on their territory. They go back to their weird Anthony Kiedis under the bridge situation here with like books everywhere, which is very weird. And he looks even more disheveled here. And it is funny how his clothes do change throughout the thing, that's Shakespeare, right? That's why do you dress me in borrowed robes? He's taking on different realities of himself. There's the phrenology, head right there with different portions of the brain. He's looking at diagrams here. He's looking at his drawings. And his daughter also functions as a kind of ghost, because she shows up in these weird locations, and he knows.
Yeah. And that's an important point to that scene that we just watched, where his daughter comes and tries to rescue him. Selma Hayek is trying to convince him that his daughter is actually part of the simulation. She's not a real person. Only he and Selma Hayek and only a small group of people are real people, and she's not real. And he needs to be careful, because if he keeps listening to his daughter, then he's going to be sucked back into the simulation, and he's not going to know what's real. So the constant gaslighting and manipulation by Selma Hayek in this movie. Then he wakes up. She's not around. And you think, oh, wow, he's going to get his life together. So he grabs all his drawings and he puts it in his bag. He finds Emily, and her number. And so he's like, I'm going to go call my daughter. So he goes, he leaves, he's on the way, and he gets to a payphone, calls her. She's not there, doesn't answer. And so then he doesn't really have anywhere to go because his daughter didn't answer. So he just goes back, and she's freaking out, thinking that he left and how he's betraying her and how, you know, oh, I bet you went to go call your daughter who isn't real. And yeah, so it causes this huge fight. And he's like, you know what? I think I don't want to hang out with you anymore. I think it's best for us not to be together. And she's like, we're soulmates. Don't you realize? Okay. And he's like, well, I don't know if I believe you, because she keeps, again, gaslighting him into all this stuff. So he's saying, I don't really know if I believe you, obviously saying about his daughter being fake. And she's like, you know what? It's time. It's time. We're going to have to do it. I'm going to make you believe me. And so this whole scene, this is where he's saying, I don't believe you. And so she goes into the microwave, or the safe there, obviously, but and pulls out these blue crystals. And this is where the movie gets more interesting, because they have to shoot these crystals up their nose. No, I'm not kidding. Using this little nasal contraption here. And then it transport them to an alternate, to what she is convincing him is the real world. You see, he's in the fake world right now, the simulation, and he's going to take these blue crystals, and then they're going to be in the real world. So they both take the blue crystals, and all of a sudden he wakes up and he's more beautiful, healthier, wealthier, higher status. He's hooked up to this machine called the brain box. See all these brains within this box? And this is then the reality that you and I are all living in right now. We're in the brain box reality. This is the simulation. To get out of the simulation, which they did with these blue pills, now this is real reality. So there's Selma Hayek. She's this world famous doctor. He's a world famous doctor as an inventor. He invents some board that as you speak and think, it like draws for you. And so you're like, what the heck is going on in this? And so he's never been here before, and she's convincing him that they're married, that they've been here before. This is real life. This is actually where they really reside at, and is educating him on about like the nature of this world. So again, here we go, walking by the statuaries, right? Really, what's really happening here, you find out at the end, is they're walking by those dummies that I showed you earlier in the movie.
Yeah, notice that one's headless, by the way. And they're the columns.
There's the columns.
They walk out into the Roman villa. But the question is, you know, why would the simulation take them to the worst place, right? Well, I guess because in reality, if you were living in the metaverse Kumpad, then your life would probably be hellish, just like theirs was, right? Or if you were the elites, you'd be trying to slum it to make your way through like Legend of Zelda or, you know, Elder Scrolls or something back up to the elites. But why? Right. And then there's the brain tree in the clear cube, which is very strange. Also, the drug that it's interesting that they take it nasally, because they're taking the blue pill intranasally, which is the opposite of what Schwarzenegger does with the red pill in Total Recall. Remember, he extracts the red pill from his brain extra nasally.
Oh, good point.
So it's like the opposite of that. And that movie is also, by the way, about like simulated reality and quests. And it's PKD. Also, the last thing is that, I don't know if you can see this, but the design of the drug, of the method through which they took the drug, is the exact same. I don't know if you can see that, but you see that little glyph right there in the picture? It's the same as the method through which it's two prongs going into one, which is the glyph that recurs in Black Mirror, which is supposed to symbolize like two paths. When you're playing the game, the simulation game in Black Mirror, you have to choose yes or no, right? It becomes dialectic. And so you go one way or the other, and that leads you on. And then, which that's not only that, is that a rune, but it's also like a witching rod, a water witching rod. And so it's just interesting that symbol keeps occurring in all these things. Also in this scene, look, there's the two columns at the end of the path again. Now they're on this white path with this ghostly looking character in front of them who is a specter just like his daughter was. And then they have the two, that Yakin and Boaz are again at the end of this path right here.
Right. Well, his daughter's getting ready to be, because it's when she appears in this reality.
Right.
So what you're seeing, as BLA was highlighting, these sort of ghostly figures. This, as she's explaining to him right now, the people that look real are here in the real world with them. And then there's people that are like in both worlds together. And those are the people that look kind of ghostly figures. And he's trying to figure out all this stuff. They again move forward. Here they come up to this married couple. And so he finds out, that him and Selma Hayek are married, that they're like a well-to-do couple, and that this couple was interested in like the progress of their research. And you see his wife is kind of ghostly, and then he's like fully present. You're like, dang, what is going on right now? And she, go ahead.
Just one thing this reminds me of is that one thing you think when you watch this is, are you watching people who are dead, right? You don't know who's alive and who's dead. And are they in some sort of inner zone? Are the people living on in the pod or in the metaverse, and they're communing with their dead relatives? That actually is mentioned in the thing. But remember when Amazon did that a few years ago? They said we can create a deepfake voice of your loved ones so that you can still communicate with them as if they were still alive. And everybody, everybody's like, that's too demented. But that makes sense with these people.
Yeah, good point.
Techno necromancy, I guess.
Yeah. So now he's walking around, and this is where he realizes that he's basically in the world that he's been drawing. So she's showing him, like, there's the planetarium to look at the stars. Here's the ocean front. Up here, if you can see my mouse on the screen, this is where their little house is that he's been fantasizing about. It's everything that he's been drawing there during work. And she's like, don't you realize it's all been real the whole time? You're just drawing based on your memory. Yeah. And he's becoming convinced of this. He's like, oh, wow, you're right. Here's his daughter in real life looking for him. She's going to the shelter. She's going to the rehab centers to see if he's there. And here they're in this beautiful little villa here in Italy in the Mediterranean. She's cooking, and then you go in, and then you have this automated arm. And these were the things. That was what it was. It was all labor and monotonous work has become automated. Everybody gets $500,000 UBI. All genetic defects have been fixed, and that they'll go in and fix your DNA, and if you have anything. And then they've been mining asteroids, so they have abundant resources of minerals and goods. And so she's like, this is the real world. And she convinces him that the brain box, she invented it so that they could go back to what the bad is, so that they could understand the good. And so
duh. I mean, duh.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if you live in paradise, obviously you're going to create a place where you can go live in LA as a homeless person. Duh.
Right. That makes sense.
And so
that was her as the drawing with her arm up.
Yeah. Great point. Yep. So this is the drawing that he was drawing. Mm-hmm. Now they're sitting here, and he's like, oh, I never want to go back. And you can see he's basically, and she convinces him. I think it's in this scene where he says, oh, no, it's here in a few. He's in this false reality. And then remember, before they took the blue pill, he kept telling her, I don't believe you. I don't believe in you. And she says, well, I need to make you believe me. And so here in a few scenes, you're going to see, he then says, oh, no, I believe in you. I believe in you. If nobody believes you, I believe in you. And you can see the kind of smirk on her face. Yeah. And she asked him questions like, is there anything lacking? Oh, no. Is there anybody missing? No, there's nobody missing. So she's basically convinced him that the only thing important in his life is her. Totally have forgot about his kids and his everything that was going on in his life. She's showing him, oh, don't you realize you're a famous inventor? Let me show you. You invented this, the visualizer, the thought visualizer. And so every time you speak or say anything, it will like draw it for you on the board.
Yeah, you invented the speak and spell and the Dinobot, shake and bake or whatever from the 80s. And that was the that's what made me invent the Skinner box brain cube for us to get rid of all hunger and all sadness on the earth. I just watched this and I think, you remember that Owen Wilson's character here is back on Earth or whatever in this homeless encampment. And it's just so sad, man. It's so sad because he obviously is this character who's looking for some peace. And the only thing that he can believe in is this woman, right? There's nothing about, there's echoes of metaphysics in this, like according to the way that these people live, and the questions are going to come up, but there hasn't really been any of that so far. And he's just lost. Plus she made him put on this stupid hat.
Yeah. Here's Bill Nye again, representing science. Again, he's like the Fauci of this world. He's
like,
science.
Welcome to the Eyes Wide Shut party. How are you guys doing? Can't wait for the after party, huh?
Right. Yeah, I can't wait for the after party.
Yeah, you like my bow tie?
Yeah, and so what's happening here is he is showing how much he, I guess, supports his invention of that thought visualizer. And this like makes her really look up to him. Or again, I think she's manipulating the whole thing, but he's like, wow, even, science, believe me, here's a hologram of Zizek. And what he's talking about is that hell is actually a good place. So the whole premise, if you're watching this movie, like if you listen to what he's talking about how Christianity and its perceptions of hell are totally backwards. And that what if hell is, and then he goes on describing like all these positive attributes.
Yeah, that hat is not cool. That hat is cool if you are a boomer and you've earned the right to wear that hat somehow. You're Panama Jack in real life, right? Or you're Indiana Jones. But like if you're Owen Wilson chilling at the Eyes Wide Shut party, it's kind of cringe. Talking to the Tupac hologram of Zizek about how hell is a great place. Let's go.
Yeah.
Looking like a schlub, by the way. He's still got his schlub uniform on.
He does. Yeah. And then here privately, so now they're still out and about with all the fancy people, and Bill Nye, again, the science guy, comes and tells him, we're really worried. We're rooting for Isabella. That's again, Selma Hayek's character. But we don't know if she's really going to be able to pull it off.
Yeah.
And so he's like, okay, he doesn't really know what to think about it. And then she's like, oh, what was he saying to you? And he was saying, oh yeah, well, everybody's really rooting for you. And she's like, what? And then he tells her what he said. And he said, but I believe in you. I believe you. And then that's that again, right before they took the drug, that's what he was saying. He didn't believe her. And you can see her demeanor changes once he says this. I don't know if I can catch it.
By the way, I love the screen flashes of the rainbow prisms. Right?
Oh,
showing them that they're right there. It's like, what do they call that?
Like tracers.
Yeah, it's where they flash a light at the camera, so it gives a sense of movement. But it's also like they've reached the end of the rainbow and they're seeing things colorized as opposed to the black and white from the beginning of the movie. But also notice that the party takes place in a library, right? So the elites are at Mustafa Man's house with all of the books, but there's nothing else in the real world. There hasn't been a single sign of any books. And it also reminds me, by the way, of that's what Westworld season 2 is. Everyone's life in Westworld season 2, we see their data is sort of encrypted in books, which is biblical, really, right? You are written in the book of life, or abominations get you written in the book of death. And so here, these people, it's like they have access to all the data simulations in the world, and each life for each person is a book, and they have access to things that the people in the old world don't. Why would anybody want books, right? According to these perverts,
right?
Why would anybody want books? You can look at Etch-a-Sketch visions of dinosaurs.
Like you just get your thought visualizer.
Right.
Exactly. Huh. And so here we start to see like this is your first inclination that these blue pill, this reality is like real reality is getting ready to, it's piercing through. And so he's walking around and you can see the daughter again. Here he's sleeping, but he's waking up again in the alternate reality, jumping into the cold pool. There she is. And they're at her event, the brain box, right? This is Isabel Clemens, Dr. Isabel. And so this is a whole event. And she's like, well, she was real worried because, again, Bill Nye was talking about how they're rooting for her, but they're real worried if she's actually going to be able to pull off this research. And she's like, well, can I interview you? And he's like, yeah, you can interview me on stage.
And so two sides of the pyramid. You see that?
Oh, yeah.
One side of the pyramid. And the swimming in movies also is always like the person goes swimming and then they come out of the pool refreshed, like they've gone through they're attempting a new baptism, right? They either go through the baptism into the new system or they wake up. And here he's unable to wake up. She's got him fully into the system. We're going to see what happens in a second, though.
Yeah. So here we're at her event. This is a huge event for her in her professional life. So she's getting ready to interview her husband or boyfriend. I mean, clearly it's some type of long-term relate in this alternate world, but she's now asking him questions. And this is where she's asking him things like, is there anything missing from your life? And it would then show like a video of him previously, which he's actually here wearing the shirt that he had on the day that he, like, the whole event where the boss fires him. This is him wearing clothes on that day. And then this is where when I was watching it, I started to think, man, wait, maybe she is like super sophisticated and she's like doing this whole experiment on him. I was kind of confused for a second there when I was watching this. I was like, wait, this is him the day that he met her. And so he would say one thing and then he would answer and it would highlight, she's basically highlighting how, how much he loves his life and everything that he's doing. And when she asked if there's anybody missing, here's his daughter, which he can see the ghostly version of, right?
Yeah.
She's there. His daughter's looking at her and he doesn't say that she's missing. He says, no, nobody's missing. And then she kind of dissipates.
That whole scene to me functioned as a kind of ritual humiliation. She has him on the stage in front of all these elites at this thing, and all of his answers are painful. And it's also like a Turing test. It's showing that he's like in Blade Runner world and he can't determine whether he's real or a simulation or in the simulation or what's real. Did he even make this video or not? What is she talking about? But all the people are there to sort of wonder at this human being. I thought that was a really
you just cut out for a second. Your internet, you still there?
And also, thank you, Lens.
Hey, BLA, you're cutting out. You're cutting out.
The rainbows. Am I good? Let me know if I'm good.
Okay, now I can hear you, but your video's frozen.
Okay, good.
Oh no, you're good now. You're good. Okay, we're back. Okay. All right.
We're back. That Mississippi internet, y'all. Come on, give me a break.
Hey. Okay, so here, then Science is coming up to speak to Selma and say, "Oh, it was incredible. We totally believe in you." And he is trying to get a drink here, and everybody just keeps ignoring him and walking around him. And he sees his daughter up at the top of the stairs, and he starts running towards her right here, and she starts moving away from him. And he's like, "No, don't go." And Selma's freaking out because she can feel something's off and she's trying to find Owen. And so now all of a sudden she's more real, right? You see how she went from like a ghostly figure to almost a real presence there. He's talking with her and she's basically telling him, you're not well. And he shows her the drugs that he's taking and how these are so special. She says that they're smiling because she says, do you remember this? And she describes a memory she had when she was like 6 years old. And then he remembered it and he was able to say, "Oh yeah, I remember it." And then XYZ. And so she starts crying and smiling because her dad remembers when she was a little girl. Yeah. But, then all of a sudden she like has to leave. Here he is taking more of his drug. He throws it down the hatch there. And that kind of screws everything up because they're on the blue pill side, and now he just threw down a yellow pill, and now it's like everything starts going in chaos. Everything's burning, police everywhere. You see like the reality's fracturing, and she's like, hurry, 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 we got to get back to the brain box, we got to get back to the brain box. And so she plugs him back in, and all of a sudden they're outside back where they're doing drugs under the rain, and they have this shared experience now.
Yeah, they're back in Chaz Chop, Portland. And and the riot also is interesting because the riot is the authorities clearing out the homeless encampment, right? So they're in the simulation, which she tells him is the real world,
right?
But they are in reality in the liquidation of the homeless encampment. But it also functions as a war in his mind, right? Because we've got fires and we've got people running everywhere in chaos, and so his brain is sort of trying to figure out what's real and what's not. And here they go back to the bar and they meet up with their
now they're back in the dive bar, and and so this is another point I wanted to make when I was trying to, right in the beginning of the stream, I mentioned how every time they use their supernatural abilities on these drugs, something negative actually happens. So again, she makes the boss who died look like he commits suicide. They like make people trip. They make people hurt themselves. She now starts to kill people. Like she slices a dude's throat. And so it's like strange that the superpowers are always in a way associated with them doing something in a way negative. Now it may be positive for the scenario or context of the situation of the film, but it's certainly not the betterment of humanity or anybody else but themselves. And so now she goes in here. He says, hey, you're not supposed to be in here. So clearly she's a drug addict. The bartender, which she said isn't a real person, because that was flashback to the beginning of the film. She's like, oh no, he's not real. He says, hey, you're not allowed in here anymore. You're basically, you're a drug addict. We don't want you here. And she can like use her witchcraft magic on these drugs, and she slices his throat open. And it's
also Plato's Cave, by the way. They're in Plato's Dive. So they're back in Plato's Cave.
Oh, is that what that's called? It was called Plato's Dive?
It's called Plato's Dive.
Yeah. Oh, nice catch. So now Owen is over here looking through the prison bars, and he sees Bourne Peterson. He's supposed to be dead, remember? He's the boss at the beginning of the film that hit his head and then fell out of the window.
Yeah.
But he's alive. And so Owen's having like a mental break, and he starts running over there and saying, you're dead. You're dead. You committed suicide. And the people are like, whoa, dude, relax. And she starts yelling at him, they're fake. They're fake. You got to get away. They're fake. As if like somehow they're getting ready to attack them. Again, she's just trying to protect the fantasy that she has this guy living in. And so now they're in a hurry. She's then gets pepper spray from one of the prostitutes for $20. And then she convinces this guy, oh, what you want? Oh, I want a BJ. Okay, cool. She gets in the car and then sprays the crap out of his face with the pepper spray here. And then Owen opens the door. The guy's trying to get out, and he punches him. And then they take the car, steal the car. So again, you see how they're diving deeper into criminality.
Yes.
And they steal his car and drive off. And she's like, okay, we got to go get more blue pills. We got to get out of the simulation. And so now she's going back up to, again, the guy who makes all the stuff, the yellow and the blue pills.
To Kim Jong-un.
And this leads to her just shooting him. And it's like, what? He's like, whoa, what do you need? She's like, I need the blue ones. And he's like, okay, I got some. And he starts reaching in his back pocket to grab them. She just shoots him a few times, and he just dies right then and there. And then she goes up to him and pulls out in his back pocket. She's like, oh, I guess he did just have some blue ones. And he's like, you just killed him. She's like, well. And so now they're on the run because the police are on their way, or they're there. And so now they're running on the rooftops, running from the police, trying to get back there. She's got the blue crystals back to the homeless and surrounded by the police. And she's like, we have one shot. You need to take these blue pills and go back out of the simulation, and I'll stay here. And he's like, no. Or first he was like, I'm leaving. I can't stay here. And so she loads up whatever that device is, that contraption. He's getting ready to blast off and go into alternate world.
Yeah.
And he slowly begins to decide otherwise. And thinks about, well, isn't it kind of cool that, here, unlike the what they call the real world, the simulation, we never know what's going to happen. You see, the other perfect world, we all get 500,000 UBI, nobody has illness, nobody, dies. Well, there, you already know what's going to happen. Here, there's like a mystery to it. And he basically convinced him, you know what? Either kill me or you blast off. I'm going to stay here. And, she then says, she basically agrees to not kill him. He like hands her a rock, like, just smash my skull.
God,
here's his daughter and his son coming to look for him. And there she is. She sees dad down there. She sees all the police around the homeless camp where her dad is. And he then hears her voice. And when he hears her voice mixed with him talking himself back into the idea that the simulation is actually fun because you don't know what's going to happen next, he decides that he's going to escape. And so she's crying. She's going to go off, and she knows that he's made his decision. And so he's getting ready to flee. He's escaping here, and she just goes in and she's getting ready to blast off. So basically she's just a drug addict. Like, that's what you realize at the end. Like, this is the last scene of Selma Hayek. You're like, holy crap, this woman just like killed people, was hoeing herself out, was doing all this types of stuff. And she really is just a drug addict. And so she then blasts up, and you don't know if the cops kill her. It doesn't really, or they arrest her or whatever. But all we know is that Owen gets away. He's running. And then he just stops when he comes to the rehabilitation center. Safe harbor, walk-ins welcome. This is for a rehab clinic. He goes in there. They're having a meeting, and the movie ends by him very reluctantly. They're asking him, we're not here to judge. Just tell us, what's your story? And he just has that photo of his daughter right here with her name and phone number on the back. And he says, this girl tells me that she is my daughter. And I think I believe her. And that's where the movie ends.
Yeah. Yeah. And then with the word bliss across, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. They really changed the meaning of the word. Oh my God. This is total agony. Yeah. So it ends with him in the worst rehab in the world, where this guy doesn't even remember his daughter. But hey, maybe it's a happy ending because he's gotten rid of this witch woman, and he'll find his way back to reality. I mean, there's a scene where he's on the park bench, right? And his daughter comes up and he's been picking the flowers. And there's a little bit of his old life where he says, like, I got distracted by the flower.
Oh, that's actually right here, right? Yeah. I think that's actually right after. Here it is. He says, right at the, so this is after you think the movie ends. I take it back. You're right. And his daughter's just waiting, and you can tell he's late, that she's been waiting for him, and she's starting to cry because she thinks that dad's never going to get off the drugs. He's never going to. And here he comes, and he has all these little.
Wow. Oh, wow. I picked these flowers for you. Oh,
wow. And you can tell they're all flowers like you'd see on the side of a road. These aren't like roses and tulips. These are like dandelions and, stuff that you find on the side of a road. But she's so happy that he actually came and he was actually able to make it. Yeah. And she said, I got you these flowers. And he said, I'm sorry, I'm late. And she says, you're not late. You're here. And she's just so happy that he actually showed up. And that is actually the very, very end of the movie.
Dang, you guys hear those cicadas out here?
Ooh, no, we don't. That snowball Mike ain't picking those up.
So cicadas. Yeah. So, he gives her the flowers, and it means that, I guess, that He's
Oh, I
still,
wasn't even showing it, was I? Here it is. I
well,
didn't even have it on. I'm sorry.
like the flowers are weeds, and he's
Here
kind
she
of
is sitting on the
in the
bench. So
weeds
there's
of life,
Bliss.
right? He's just living in this sort of, yeah, he's like living as this parasitic weed, but his appearance has in it's improved a little bit. There's
Yeah,
water in the
definitely improved.
background. By the way, they are right next to a lake, just like they're in their vision of paradise. They were by the Roman villa, right, with the beautiful lake. So at least now they're by a lake, and he's bringing her flowers, and it's showing that like he's still possible. It's still possible for him to bloom, I suppose, and reunite with his daughter. So happy ending in the end, I suppose. But what a bleak vision of reality, really.
Right. Agreed. So, what I mean, if you want to conclude, I'm going to pull up. Let me load up Limitless here. What's your kind of final takeaway of Bliss? Do you
Well,
recommend it?
well, my takeaway is that I think that this movie would be incredibly depressing and a total black pill if you came into it without context. I think that watching it with discernment, and knowing, having some sort of awareness of the way things are going in the world, I watch it and I go, oh, yeah, of course. Of course they're showing us this. Of course this is the movie. And it doesn't really affect me in terms of like, yes, it's a negative movie, but it's, they're the negative parts, but it's like, this is just more of what we see in
Right.
reality. So I wasn't, the parts I was really affected by dramatically were the fact that is the fact that Owen Wilson is clearly in pain throughout this movie. His character's in pain, and that he, at the end, at least experiences some semblance of a possible future. I mean, the part where he says he's gonna, he's willing to die, just hit me over the head with this rock, is almost like, yeah, you can just go ahead and stone me to death, and it won't even matter. It's like there's nothing left in his life. But thankfully, his daughter is a positive character in this, and has this virtuous love of her father, and she's not willing to give up on him, which, by
Right.
the way, is unique in movies now, because
Yes.
the brokenness of the family is almost a meme. It is so bad in reality. I mean, there's so many broken families and so many broken homes, and we see that the the ironic thing about this movie is that the people that they are playing in the simulation are the ones that are doing this to us, right? So at least she's a grounded character who is like, I'm trying to pull you out of this bullshit. I'm trying to pull you out of this, and we can have a relationship again. And that's positive. So there is something good at the end of the movie.
Yeah. And shout out to our anonymous sponsor for tonight's stream. They wanted us to check this film out. Neither one of us had watched it, and I would recommend it. Like I said, or reiterating what you said, I would also say that it can be perceived maybe as a black pill. It's not the happiest of films, but if you're discerning and you're interested in following that sort of line of thought, I think it is a pretty well done film. I think it's pretty interesting, and not that I support it, because the whole like utopian simulation world is totally full of all the propaganda you would imagine. Like we said, UBI, um, everything's automated, genetic engineering, mining of asteroids. Bill Nye is the epitome of science.
Yes.
Zizek's the epitome of philosophy, which his whole thing is talking about how hell is actually not that bad.
Yeah.
And so it's like, wow, okay. So, like you said, it's really interesting how they criticize things, but also in a way, the same people are promoting the same things that the film's in ways critiquing.
Yeah, it's not that bad for people who want to be there in the first place, I suppose, right? Or who
Yeah.
don't even believe in the concept of hell. Like these people live according to empirical data, and just do this stuff, and there's no such thing as any kind of other world, and yet they're trying to create this other world all the time inside your broken mind.
Ed
I
the
think
Wave
that,
says, thanks, anonymous sponsor. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I apologize.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, he says, thanks, anonymous sponsor. You, the MVP. Shout out to Ed the Wave.
I think
Go ahead.
one more thing is that I think it's important for anyone watching I mean, everybody knows this watching here, but for people to keep in mind in general is that I've noticed this trend of, obviously, movies are Hollywood itself is dying, movies are dying, and the fact that people don't watch movies how they're meant to be made. We watch them on our phones, and we do all, people do all this stuff. But I think it's important to keep in mind that, art is important, and art gives us a window into things in a kind of parallel way, that we don't often see, especially with fiction or fictional works, that we don't often see in terms of, like, for instance, if you're reading a book and it's an autobiography, you get a lot from an autobiography, but you can get a totally different dimension of things by reading fiction, because it gives us a truth that kind of supersedes fact in a lot of ways, right? Almost a kind of a spiritual truth that we get, that we can also feel. It's not just logical, but we feel it, but we can feel things. And I think that it's important that people don't start shying away from movies that they think are going to be difficult, or that they think are going to be hard to watch, especially before they've experienced the movie, because it's important to remember where we are and what these people are trying to propagate. Even beautiful art, you can't just experience beautiful art. You have to experience things that are visceral, and sometimes things that are terrible, because that gives us a window into the way that other people think in the world, and that they're. So, for instance, if you are the type of person who loves classical art or classical architecture, or this, or statuesque art, it's important to keep in mind that sometimes you have to be aware of, for instance, like degenerate postmodern, abstract expressionist art, because it does exist, and that's their paradigm. Their paradigm, the people that make this and propagate it, are seeing the world as chaotic. And so it's important to understand the way that people think, to not shy away from movies. So Limitless is a great example of where people may, even with this movie, shy away from it because of some of the themes in the movie, and how far he goes. And I'm not saying you don't need to put your hand on the stove to know how hot it is. We can use our logical mind. When someone tells us it's hot and you're cooking things, you don't need to put your hand on it.
Right.
But I think that it's important to experience this kind of stuff, because it also, it reinforces our own worldview. So this next film that we're going to do is a great example of that.
Yeah. Before we do it, let's do a little bit of shameless self-promoting. So,
okay.
What you got to promote? What you got going on? Tell the people.
Yes, well, I'm Bayes Lit Analyzer, so I cover literature and also films over at my channel on YouTube.
Yeah.
Thanks to my homeboy here, David.
And you're in the video title. So again, if you don't follow, everybody here probably knows who you are, but go follow his channel. The link is in the video description, but also the his name in the title will do as well. So if you click that, it'll take you straight to his channel. Go ahead.
Yes, and this is like our 12th stream here on films. Shouts out to my sister right there. And so please go over to my channel, because I've got a lot coming up, and I've just covered a lot. And a lot of the stuff that I've covered recently, deals with these themes. I did an analysis, a sort of reanalysis on Dante's Inferno through this movie, The House That Jack Built. I did Black Mirror. I did a Bob Dylan stream. I've got literature coming up. I'm doing Tom Wolfe's Bonfire of the Vanities with Maddie, Digital Minefield at Real Cooter Brown. And we've got a lot coming up. And also, you can check me out on Thursday nights on Rockfin on our friends' channels, Alternate Current Radio, Boiler Room. And also, I've been doing a lot of radio appearances on TNT Radio Live. Shouts out to my homeboy Hesher out there, and also Ruckus and all of them. So been doing a lot recently, so please come over to my channel and subscribe.
Yes. Now, do subscribe. BLA is fantastic. I always recommend your content to people that are interested in that type of thing. My shameless self-promotion is, one, smash that like if you guys are here. Would really appreciate that. Also, as Rachel has just figured out, we got 3 new members emojis. We have the him from the Powder Puff Girls, the his Infernal Majesty, which is a sort of a flamboyantly kind of gay devil. So we got that emoji. We got Beta, and we got Hulk Hogan's face. So if you would like to have access to these, please become a YouTube member. I need 2 more members, and I can add another emoji. We got some good ones. Shout out to Chicken, my buddy Chicken. Rachel knows who Chicken is. Shout out to Chicken for helping me out with the emojis. He did a fantastic job. Shout out to Andrew and Rachel Wilson, particularly Andrew, for helping me hook that up. Also, guys, before we get into Limitless, I have another sponsored stream tomorrow, which we'll be doing is analyzing Christians in favor of transhumanism, the Christian Transhumanist Association, and people related to that movement. And then if you guys would like to support for tonight's stream, please send in a super chat using either YouTube or Streamlabs link. The Streamlabs link is pinned to the top of the YouTube live stream. So just want to throw that out there. Okay, now let's get into Limitless. I think we'll be able to move through this one a little bit quicker.
Before we get to that, can I let me promote our friend right here, Rachel Wilson, since she dropped a comment before I freeze again. Shouts out to Rachel Wilson at Based Homeschool Mom, who just did a huge interview today that was shown on Just Pearly Things.
Yeah, that's right.
Talking about her expertise in the occult roots of feminism. And so please support our friend Rachel Wilson, who also has a great book out, The Occult Roots of Feminism, and she's a good friend of ours. So I thought that I would drop a quick shouts out to her.
Absolutely. God bless Rachel. I have not watched the Pearly Things yet, but I will because I'm sure it's fantastic. Rachel is doing great work. She's phenomenal. So if you don't follow Rachel Wilson, I think her YouTube is, or the @ is @Rachel_Wilson, but go follow her YouTube channel. If you go to our last interview, her link's right there in the video description. Shout out to the Wilsons. God bless you guys. Truly, truly appreciate you. Chase Haggard throws in $1.99 and says, y'all an epic duo. Well, thank you so much, Chase. I appreciate the $1.99. And you are epic, brother. Keep on that that facial hair, brother. You look phenomenal. You look phenomenal. You look like a real Romanov. Yeah. And then we had one more. I wanted to give a special shout out to Shaunaverse for his becoming a member. And of course, shout out to iPack. I think all of our thumbnail artists for helping out with the thumbnail for today's stream. Again, special shout out to Chase Haggard. God bless you, brother. Love you. You look amazing. You think amazing. You are amazing. And shout out to the Wilsons. Looking for more content. Oh, Chase has a YouTube channel? I'm not familiar with Chase's YouTube channel. Chase, God bless your YouTube channel, man. Share your link in the live chat and get everybody go follow Chase Haggard's YouTube channel. Didn't know you. I remember you talking about creating one. But go follow Chase Haggard, man. Phenomenal brother. Okay. Now let's get into he says no, not yet. I don't. Okay. Okay. Well, anyways. And Pim Orsos just became a COTEL crew member. God bless you, brother. I need one more member, and we got a new emoji. So if you're not a member, sign up today, and we're going to have one more emoji. Anyways, okay. Now let's get into Limitless. Where do you want to start? Do you want to provide some background context for this movie before we start going scene by scene?
Yeah, I'll give you some background. So this is a 2011 film starring Bradley Cooper, and just some sort of theatrical or actor background for this. One thing about this that's interesting is that Bradley Cooper was really at a point where he was making a career and starting to be in great films at this point. And one thing that's interesting just from an actor's point of view is that there is a clip from when Bradley Cooper was a student at the Actor Studio in New York. You know, the one with James Lipton, if anybody remembers that from the 2000s with Will Ferrell. James Lipton ran the Actor Studio, which is like one of the sort of method acting tinted drama, not a drama school, but a studio in New York that puts out a lot of successful actors. And Bradley Cooper, they had Robert De Niro as a guest, and they asked students get the opportunity to ask him a question. And Bradley Cooper stands up and asks Robert De Niro a pretty insightful question about acting. And he was still a student at the school at the time. And what's interesting is that fast forward about 10 or 12 years later, and Bradley Cooper is in a movie with Robert De Niro. And now He's in a lot of movies with De Niro. He was in Silver Linings Playbook and a bunch of De Niro films. But I think that's interesting because it shows his progression as an actor. And it also, one of the things about this is that I can relate to his character in this in a lot of ways. He's a kind of a struggling writer, a starving artist, with an unkempt mop of hair. And he he's a lot of his movies are literary. There are a couple of great literary movies about Bradley Cooper that have Bradley Cooper in them. He was a literature major in college, but also I know that his performance in this is partly informed by his real life. I mean, he also is a drug addict in the movie, or at least, uses drugs in the movie. And that I know that that's part of his own sort of life journey, or whatever you call it, his life experience that he dealt with that. A great movie that I would recommend that probably people won't expect is A Star Is Born. Now, A Star Is Born obviously has sort of Luminate confirmed things about it, but A Star Is Born with him and Lady Gaga is a very powerful film. It's also really dark, but he plays a musician in the movie. And I got to say, like, just a person who loves movies, his performance in that movie is incredible. He's from the very first 3 seconds of that movie, I knew it was going to be poignant and that it was going to be a tearjerker. So he was recently in Nightmare Alley. I covered a book about Houdini that was written by the Nightmare Alley writer, which focuses on the 20th century and the kind of circus jerk. But he hasn't really done much recently. But this movie is really good. It's do you want me to get into what the movie's about, or do you want to start with the basic rundown?
Feel free. If you want to open up, go ahead.
Okay, so
we're right at the beginning here.
So the movie begins. It's non-linear, and it begins with him on the top floor. He's in the penthouse of an apartment. So we know that with his clothes and the way that it looks in the background, that we're going to this is kind of a flash forward in terms of the narrative. We also know that in a way, this could be tragic because he's beginning the film at the top, and that looks like he's going to fall. He's going to jump off the building. We don't know where that's going to go. But notice it's kind of colorized, and we don't really know what this is going to entail. Well, the great thing about this movie is that it's unpredictable, and it's hard to predict what's going to happen in this until you sort of get the indications of the adreno thing that happens in it. But right after this scene, we're going to see him in a gray world where everything is drab and gray, and he's a starving writer in New York City. And he is just a basic overview is he comes across a guy that he knew, his ex-brother-in-law, who gives him a drug. He takes it. He immediately experiences an awakening of his mind. He makes his way up through the echelons of society until he is at the top. But we're going to go on his adventure through New York and through many of the world, like through the literary world, the publishing world, the finance world, and eventually into the political world. Mm-hmm. So we're going to see how sort of finance, geopolitics, drugs, elitism, and this sort of weird dichotomy in society allows this guy to move up. Now, my thesis with this movie, I'll say from the beginning, this is the last thing I'll say, is that I think that he is targeted in the movie. I think that he's a test subject because there are a bunch of other people that experience the same things that he does, and it seems to be no accident. The guy that he comes across, that gives him the drug says, yes, this will awaken your brain, but it only really works for people who already have a higher intelligence. We know he's creative. We know he's a writer. He's college educated and he's living in New York, but we know that he has sort of some sort of insight and higher intelligence, but this drug is going to awaken that. So we're going to go on his adventure.
Right. So as you said, the movie opens up here with Bradley Cooper on the edge of a high rise in New York with these people ransacking the inside of his apartment. And you're thinking, what is going on? He's basically saying, let me explain to you how I got here, without saying those words, kind of paraphrasing. And so here we see the opening credits, and here, just like you said, we see him sort of narrating over the top of the film at the beginning and towards the end of the film. And he's like, you're probably wondering how somebody looks like this who's not an alcoholic or a drug addict. Yeah. And he's like, I'm a starving artist. I'm a writer. And it shows his writer's block, his inability to create anything. And we find out that he has an advance on a book. And here he's now sitting down with his girlfriend, who he clearly loves, who is breaking up with him because he's kind of a loser. He's not really doing anything. Let me pull this down. There we go.
And his girlfriend is played by Abby Cornish, who is in the movie Candy with Heath Ledger, which is this is a interesting movie to watch. And I always like her in the movies, and I think she's beautiful. But they have the best breakup of all time in this movie. Like, they break up like everybody should break up. It's completely like a clean split, and there's no animosity in it, and they're just two adults realizing that they're going different ways.
Sorry for this program announcement. Keenan Beats has just become a YouTube member that now has given me enough people for the next emoji. And so if you guys look, there should now be an angry NPC emoji you guys can use. Check that out. Everybody in the chat, look for the angry face NPC. Is that available now?
Nice.
So thank you so much, Keenan, for becoming. Thank you, Slow Boy Whiteboard. And thank you for everybody who are YouTube members here. Enjoy the new NPC Mad meat. Yes, there it is. There it is. NPC's Mad, boy. Okay. So him sitting down here with his girlfriend, who just breaks up with him, slides her key to his apartment over to him. He also mentions that he was previously married and that she divorced him. So we see a sort of motif here. He lost his first wife, doesn't explain why. She just lost interest or something, sort of a quick divorce. And now the girlfriend that he really cared about just broke up with him, slid the key across, and she paid for the bill. So she has the money. She has the success. She just got promoted and now has an assistant. And he is sort of a loser, just living off of her. Yes. Thank you so much, Keenan Beats. Really appreciate it, bro. And so now we see he's kind of lost, totally lost. And here we go. Here's the guy that is actually his former brother-in-law, his ex-brother-in-law. So he sees Bradley Cooper and it's like, hey, bro, what's going on, man? And he's like, not doing so hot, as you can probably see.
Yeah, right, are you homeless? Why do you look homeless?
Yeah. And he says that he has an advance on a book, or he's trying to write this book. He's like, how's it coming? He's like, not good at all. So he says, well, let's go have a drink. I want to catch up with you. So they go over to this bar talking. So he gives him a little bit more information about how his life isn't anywhere near where it wants to be. His ex-wife, Melissa, is married and has kids. And he's thinking, oh man, his ex-wife, she's like living the life now. And he's like, well, actually her man just walked out on her. And so it's just her and she's with her two kids. And so he's like, man, that's unfortunate. And so her brother here tells him, hey, this one's on the house. You want to fix your situation? Take this pill right here. He has to go. He just got a phone call, clearly something urgent and potentially violent. By the way, BLA, that sunset is amazing behind you, bro.
Yes, I told you eventually it would get to a nice southern sunset.
That is a beautiful sunset. Yeah. The pinks and the yellows.
I wish y'all could see. I mean, you can't see it from the camera, but the Gulf is right over there, and I got the pink Gil Bates chemtrail sunset.
Oh, dude, I just made your screen a little bit here.
Yeah. So the Gulf is right over there behind those trees, and you can see it in one of the spaces back there over that way. There's water right over there. I don't want to move the camera this way because his house is under construction, but yeah, it's beautiful here. Everybody come down here to the coast and hang out with me.
So here is here's the drug, the Limitless. So he's kind of skeptical. He's like, I don't know if I want to take this. And he's like, just do it. This one's on the house. Yeah. And so they leave. He has it in his pocket. He's walking back home, and he's thinking about all the times that he was stealing Percocets from his dying aunt, that he was lying to family about certain things. Now he's walking back up to his mediocre apartment and looks like Chinatown. Yeah. And his landlord's wife comes out and starts haranguing him for apparently being late on the rent, not living up to his responsibilities. And he had just taken that limitless pill, and it starts to kick in.
Yes.
And so right about here, and so the same motif, he can kind of see himself walking into himself. Now the neurons activate, and just like the last film, once the drug is hitting, the lights turn on, things start to shimmer. He's able to see things more clearly. And so she's yelling.
His eyes light up blue. I mean, he has blue eyes, but his eyes become like almost aquamarine. And by the way, I lived in a fifth floor walk up in Alphabet City, East Village, New York. And this is like, this must have been filmed there. It looks exactly like this. And he lives in China. I looked at an apartment in Chinatown at one point. And even with, by the way, even a fifth floor walk up in Chinatown or the East Village is unbelievably expensive, as you can imagine.
I bet.
So it's interesting that he lives there. He's obviously living on family money / his ex-wife or his girlfriend's money. And it's also interesting that he has a book deal. They just kind of throw that in there that he already has an advance on.
He already had an advance on a book deal,
which is very difficult. I mean, as a person who wants a book deal, it's very difficult to get a book deal. So he does have that. And the little montage that they showed there of when he first takes the NZT 48 drug, which the guy says, by the way, remember when he sees the guy on the street? That's the point at which I think that he was actually targeted by this guy, because the guy is working for somebody who works for a lab, which reminds me of like a Fort Detrick lab. And he says, oh, I just happen to be here on the street and I see you. And then I want to give you this and I'm going to tell you everything about it. And then when he takes it, the montage that they show is it clearly shows the two hemispheres of the brain. It shows the pineal gland in the middle, the little walnut from the thing. It opens up, explodes, all the synapses start firing, and and it becomes golden in this vision where he's able to operate at a level that human beings don't operate at.
Yeah. And so things are kicking in right now, and all of a sudden he starts retorting to her about her law book. He's able to recall things from his subconscious, from previous relationships and instances that he had. And he just starts rambling on and giving her little tidbits about the justice biography she's reading, about aspects of him, the paper that he's suspecting she's writing. And she becomes quite enamored with what he's saying, to the point where it ends with her on top of him. And you can see behind the computer there, she is on top of him. Clearly his pants are down. And so she certainly not a Christian film. That'd be considered adultery. She is a wife, but everything's kicked in. You can see how bright everything is. And so he starts realizing, dang, look at my apartment. I need to clean. So before he even works on his book advance, he starts cleaning. You can see multiple versions of him, meaning just how speedily and motivated he is. He kind of cleans the whole place and then sets down and writes the first 40 pages of his book, 40 or 80 pages, something like that.
Yeah. And this is a lot like, there is another Bradley Cooper movie. I think it's with Tandy Newton. It's called The Words, where he's a writer that has a lot of the same themes. But what I like about this is that instead of the Matrix code kind of raining down the screen, we see words, we see letters, letters as symbols being put together in this kind of endless loop. And then he's able to amalgamate those and put those into a creative form.
Right.
Also, the thing with him recognizing the book is like that seems to me to be pure like hyperthymesia, which is like highly autobiographical memory syndrome. He's able to place in his mind exactly where he saw the book 12 years before on the corner of a table of a girl he was waiting to hang out with in college. Right. And he's able to recite passages of bits of information that he'd read about law theory. And of course, his intellect is what turns her on. And they sex in the apartment. He's able to, I think the continuous theme in this of him seeing himself in, fragmented is at this point in the movie, it's that his brain is pushing to such a limit, hence the title, that like, it's almost like his brain is outside of himself. So he starts to see versions of what he wants to be and become those things. And then they unify into this thing where he's cleaned his apartment. Later on, we're going to see that when he is withdrawing from the drug, the same thing happens. So it's his brain kind of regressing from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point. Um, so we see he's in this flow state, then he wakes up, everything's dull again. And I think there's a line, something where he couldn't reach or grasp the brilliance that he had the day before. And so he goes and drops off those pages to I assume
His
the editor of
Yeah.
the publishing company.
Yeah.
And he's like, just read 3 pages. Just read 3 pages. If you don't like them or you don't continue to read, I'll give back my advance. She's like, what? This dude, you already look like you're homeless, bud.
Yeah, stupid offer. Yeah.
And so he walks out, and now he is needing to get more of that because he's really like, dang, look how much I got done.
Yeah.
So he calls old boy, or actually he was getting ready to call back her because she loved the reading. So he got back home. By the time he got back home, she had already read everything, loved it, wanted to talk with him immediately. He's like, man, I'm not the same guy I was. So he goes over to his ex-brother-in-law's apartment. And you can see
I was just going to say that the kernels of who he becomes are already extant in his personality now. So for instance, that's the dog banging. So for instance, like when he gets the call from the editor, he could rush over there. Like probably any normal person would rush back over there and ask for the book deal, but he knows that he's going to play this game where it's going to create more want for the book. And he's probably thinking, bidding war or something in the future, but at least that's there for him. Also, he also is well aware that when he goes back over to this guy, I think this guy's name is Victor. When he goes back over to Victor's house, that he's going to become his bitch, he says in the movie. And that's going to occur later in the film when Robert De Niro, there's a scene with him and Robert De Niro. But when he opens up the door, the guy don't want to open up, and he sees that his face has been messed up, probably because of the phone call that he got in the bar. Also interesting that
Vernon, his name's Vernon.
His name's Vernon. Okay, his name's Vernon, not Victor. I was thinking Victor Kiriakis, who's the bad guy in Days of Our Lives. Anybody watch that? That's my fake name when I go to Starbucks.
I didn't know you were a soap opera fan.
Well, my mom, I would come home and my mom at 4:00 was watching Days of Our Lives. So I would see it in the halls of my memory, just like
sure.
Yeah. Also, I love Steve Patch. He was the coolest character. No, but and Bo. No, but so the call that he got in the bar led to this, obviously. And it's also interesting that the beginnings of the journey take place in a bar, just like in the last movie that we watched. And that leads into this kind of journey of the underworld, which in this becomes a journey of the overworld, right? Where he's going to make his way up the pyramid.
Right.
But this sitting here drinking, he says, I told you you'd like it. And he says, who did that to your face? And the guy says, Vernon says, you don't want to know, which is indicative to us watching this movie that, the people that he's involved with are some sort of nefarious people, either organized crime or something higher up. And it's going to be kind of both in this film.
Right. Exactly. And so inside his apartment, this is a beautiful, luxurious New York apartment. So clearly this guy's making bank. He said he's working for a pharma company, and that's why he has access to NZT-48, because it's sort of an experimental drug that's not on the market, but he has access to. And so he's like, okay, you want more? He's like, yeah, I need more. Okay, well, I need my suit picked up, and it'd be nice if you got us some breakfast. So he tells him what he needs. And so there he goes. He went and got the suit from the dry cleaners, and he comes back and the door's open. It's adjacent. And you're like, what's going on here? All the paintings are taken down. Everything is distorted. Everything's destroyed. And he looks, and Vernon has a gunshot in his head. Yes. So he starts to freak out, doesn't know what to do, starts squirming around, thought he heard somebody still in the apartment. So he calls 911. And once he finished calling 911, he realized that the people that killed him are probably after the same thing that he wanted. And so he puts on these gloves and he starts just combing the apartment for something as well. And he ends up finding it in the oven. So it was cooking in the oven. In the bottom of the oven, he finds this thing wrapped in aluminum foil which is like $1,000 or so. And I forget how, I mean, maybe it was multiple $1,000s. It was a black book full of phone numbers, and it was a baggie full of NZT48.
Yes. And I don't know about anybody else, but when you're watching the movie, you're going, you're saying to yourself, take the cash also. That's terrible.
Yeah.
But you're like, dude, you got nothing. He found it in the oven, by the way, using his powers of deduction. Because he realized that the guy sent him out for food, so he's not cooking. So where would it be? It would be in the oven, right? So he looks there, and also he puts on the old lady cleaning yellow gloves, and you're like, please take off the gloves before you open the door where the cops see you with gloves on. And make sure that you wipe everything down in the apartment, because now he's touched everything in the apartment. But you're also thinking, this guy's going to get out of it. He called 911, and also he's got no cordite on his hands. He doesn't own a gun. Probably he's not registered in New York, and there's no gun in the apartment. So hopefully he can find, and he looks like a total loser, but hopefully that's not a way for them to think that he's the culprit.
Right. So the police come that he called. Luckily, he found everything right before they got there. And then just to make sure they take him down for questioning, he's kind of, not acting as smooth as he could be. This cop's kind of suspicious. Melissa, the ex-wife, who was the sister of the guy who died, ends up calling, tells him, Bradley Cooper, that, look, don't come to the funeral. I don't want to see you. And by the way, the guy's name's Edward Mora. That's the character of Bradley Cooper, Edward Mora.
Yes, and this is weird because I covered a book by Thomas Harris called Kari Mora, which is not really a sequel, but it's related to Silence of the Lambs. Please go back, everybody, and watch my Kari Mora stream.
Go check it out. Click his name in the video title, and it'll take you straight to his channel.
So is this supposed to be that like a moratorium, like he's dead at this point, like his world is dead? He's not literally dead. I'm saying his world is dead. He's got nothing going for him. But he's going to somehow rise from his drab existence of death in this kind of purgatory of New York City. Names are always symbolic and indicative of some sort of part of the personality as it's involved in the narrative in literature and film.
Right. So eventually he's able to get out of here, and he has the black book, the money, and the NZT48 in between his belt and his lower back right now. And so he's really just waiting to get out of there so he can get a hold of that stuff.
Yeah, he's got Jeff Stein Effrey's black book in his belt loop, dude. Like, don't search you. And why didn't you take a lawyer when you went there?
Probably couldn't afford one. I guess you can be appointed one.
Yeah.
So
he wasn't arrested either, but still,
yeah.
I mean.
So he leaves, and he's on the way home, and he's kind of thinking everybody's got an eye on him. So he gets home, locks his door, and takes one of his Limitless pills, and now he's juiced up. He's back on. You see the difference in the lighting.
Yeah.
And so he was talking about how he's doing all types of things. He went and got a haircut, got cleaned up, finished the rest of his book. This is him taking the book in, dropping it off on the desk of the editor. He finished it in 4 days. He wrote an entire book. Here he's with more cool people. He's at cool parties.
Yeah. He's like Matthew McConaughey. He met cool people and did cool things, right?
Yeah.
Learned how to play the piano. Went to the cool hipster joints. Got a new Prada suit. Got a haircut. That's what I need to do. Get a dang haircut probably one day. And then he goes off to the Hamptons. He's eating this spread where he's talking to people. He also made his finance connections because when he went to Marquee or wherever he went in New York with the high finance people, he was talking to them about their mistakes with investing, and of course that they take a shine to him, and now he's made his way into their society.
Right. Here is and we got a super chat that came in from Dalman, throws in 999, says, great stream, fellas. If I remember correctly, this movie came out when the whole nootropic drug craze started. And I would agree. When this movie came out, like I said, 2011, I was deep into my psychedelic phase. I kept associating it with microdosing. because it's like when you microdose a little acid or psilocybin, you kind of feel like you're on top of your game. Your brain's a little sharper, doing all this different stuff. But you're right, Dalman. For me, this movie was partly got me into using nootropics. I remember, I think I bought Joe Rogan's Alpha Brain, and again, I was probably microdosing, taking psychedelics, Adderall, all types of stuff. And so this movie was like, oh yeah, man, this is like me when I'm on my substances. But yeah, great point.
I saw an article today that said that psychedelic use was at the highest point in American history right now, even higher than the boomers in Woodstock. So that
I
makes
believe
sense.
that.
This leads on to that. Yeah.
Well, shoot, we got. I mean, Oregon's legalized mushrooms, and I think Colorado's getting ready to do the same if they haven't already.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So,
I mean, once they started using mushrooms, and then later ketamine and ecstasy to try and heal post-traumatic stress disorder, like it made its way into the mainstream. So
right, yeah, psychedelics are definitely mainstream now. Like, every boomer's talking about ayahuasca and ayahuasca ceremonies and all types of stuff. I did it back when it was cool.
yeah.
No, it's not cool. Don't do it, kids. Don't do drugs, kids.
It was cool for me back at Fish '98, man. They played Terrapin Station. It was on the anniversary of Jerry's death, man. There were planes crisscrossing, and there was a pyramid in the background. That was wild. Those were different days. Dude.
Yeah, Dalman says the same thing. I basically thought microdosing and Alpha Brain made me this character. Laugh my ass off. Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, delusion. So anyways, we see Edward Mora, Bradley Cooper here. His life is on the up and up. He's got that secret stash. He's looking fine, making money. I think at this point he was making like how many, like a few $1,000s a day, which was huge for him. Yeah. Willing to do all types of new things. And then he jumps off this ledge, and when he dives into the ocean, he said, everything became clear. I knew exactly what I needed to do. And that was apparently he needed $100,000, and he was going to basically work the stock market. As long as he had his substances, he was able to perceive patterns. So here he is talking with the Russian guy. They're always Russian, right?
Yeah,
always Russian.
Same in the movie Drive, but yeah, he of course he dove off Acapulco, right, or whatever, and of course dives into the water and experiences a rebirth, just like in the last film, right? Yep. So he comes up out of the water, and he realizes he needs to go meet with the head of Wagner PMC and take over Rostov, right? And this guy just happens to be, this guy's in New York, and the guy doesn't trust this guy, by the way. I don't know who this dude is, but this guy looks the part. I mean, this dude is for real, right? And he notices his necklace, his medallion, all of his little symbolism, and he says, I realize I can't bullshit you. I don't need to show you the patterns or whatever. I just need $100 in seed money so I can start day trading. And, the guy basically says to him, you don't mess it up, right? Yeah, you don't want to disappoint this guy.
Right. And so he makes it clear that he's going to kill him if he doesn't get his money. Yeah. Which he gets his money, but again, as we move through, it'll make more sense. It actually connects with that opening scene. So he's on his substances, and he's like, look, I'll get you your money back. Don't worry about it. And he's like, okay, so there's his $100,000. And now he's starting a new job at Lafitte Trading Company. Uh-huh. Is that what that says? Yeah. I think so. So he's now a day trader. Working in the finance industry there in New York, and he's killing it. Apparently within 2 weeks, he goes from like 2,000 to like 2 million or something like that, 2.3 million. And so everybody's just fascinated with what is he doing? How is he making so much money? And everybody's interested. And now we see, the girl that broke up with him is now interested in him again.
Yes.
He's kind of making waves in the finance industry, and she's also hearing about it. Mm-hmm. And so she's much more attracted to him. He's successful, and now they're just they're back together being a thing. And let's see, move forward. Oh, and then so here we see this guy. Let's see if I can get I can't get it. Anyway, there's a guy following them. It becomes apparent that somebody's following Bradley Cooper here, and he's becoming more and more paranoid about it. He's not exactly sure why. And so he just got done making love with his girlfriend, and she's like, why don't you come to bed? And everything starts short-circuiting for him. So he noticed that when he drinks and he doesn't eat, because when he takes this, he's like, oh, I lose my appetite, which made me think, oh, yeah, Adderall, of course. But he loses appetite. He, doesn't take care of himself, basically, doesn't sleep, drinks a bunch of alcohol, and he starts sort of short-circuiting where things sort of glitchy. He'll forget what he's been doing for an extended period of time. He'll black out. And so now he's in the hallway of his girlfriend's apartment. She's clearly dressed, ready to go. And he doesn't know exactly where he's at or what he's doing. And she's like, are you okay?
The Adderall thing, the meth thing is like, he's also staying up all night and looking out the windows, like you were saying, he's paranoid. But this is also giving him OPSEC and situational awareness, where he knows that this guy doesn't look right, who's, eventually starts gang stalking him. And the villain, the sort of anonymous guy who's trailing him the whole time, you realize that they cast this well, because nobody would be able to identify this guy. He's wearing a members only jacket and he looks like everybody else in New York, but he knows that this guy is after him for some reason, probably related to his brother-in-law who was murdered and the NZT. But the finance bros and the Wall Street silver crowd are like loving his gains on his finances. And then his, this one's interesting because the girlfriend is not the type who's like, I can fix you. Instead, he's fixed himself, right? And he's like becoming his best self, which is through this Adreno NZT or whatever. And they're eating at the high fine, he's in pinstripes here, and he's going to get a meeting with Carl Eichmann or whoever, the guy. He's going to get a meeting with Jeff Stein-Effrey.
Oh, exactly. Let me get the exact name. It is Carl Van Loon.
There you go.
Carl Van Loon.
Yeah, a Dutch finance bro, which reminds me of the whole Ronald Bernard thing, which is one of those kind of deep conspiracy things on the internet. Remember, Ronald Bernard was the high finance guy who talked about the Moloch, how he was involved in John Perkins level economic warfare, and the higher he went in the finance world, the more he was asked to be compromised until he witnessed a Moloch ceremony of the worst kind. You can still watch that on YouTube. That's kind of deep internet lore, but that's who Robert De Niro is. Essentially, he's a hedge fund guy, and he's going to get his one chance to meet with him.
Yep. And so here, his boss at the investment day trading place is saying, man, like you just said, hey, Van Loon, he's willing to meet you. Let me chat with you. Let's go back and forth here. He's going to be here any minute. You got to be a straight shooter. No chit chatting around. And he's like, okay, I'm eating here. Do you want something? And then the guy shows up. So you see that he has an incredible sense of self-confidence here. Yes. Edward Mora, Bradley Cooper here. And there is Carl Van Loon, Robert De Niro, comes in and starts asking some questions. And Bradley Cooper, Edward Moore, is pretty straightforward, just shooting at him. And he's pretty much buying it up because he's not like the usual finance guys. You can see he's more laid back, doesn't have a tie on, looking kind of suave. Look how he's laid back in his chair. And again, during one of the most intense, important conversations of his life, he's not leaning forward. He's suave. He's laid back. He's chilling. And so totally different vibe. And De Niro, he's kind of feeling it.
Tieless.
Yeah.
Right. Tieless at the formal meeting.
And he's like, okay, well, I got an idea for you. How about you look at these companies or these investments? He's like, okay. He starts looking at them and he says, well, I guess you're getting ready to do a major merger. And he kind of solves the whole, again, through just looking at these companies, he realizes that Van Loon, this major tycoon in the investment world or different industries, he basically monopolized different industries, that he's getting ready to have some massive merger with somebody.
Yeah.
And he's like, wow, very good. Okay. And so I really like the line here right at the end when the car parks. He's like, oh, he was like, you really live here?
Yeah.
He's like, well, the Spartans weren't much on amenities. And he goes, yeah, but the Spartans got their ass kicked eventually, which is true.
Which is true, but interesting because it also shows that this guy has no honor, right? And no, you know,
yes,
it's all about winning.
Yes.
Charles Sheen style to this guy. But it's also funny because when he drops him off at this apartment, like I literally think I looked at an apartment at that exact apartment in Chinatown. That exact place, which is a total it was a shithole.
You were at the Cafe Mimi?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, okay. So now Edward Moore is back in BLA's old stomping grounds, and he gets dropped off here. And he's like, you know what? I just wanted to go for a walk. I realized that this was the point that totally changed my life. This was one of those points in your life that everything's going to be different afterwards. So he starts going on a walk, drinking, doing stuff, and you can see the reality starting to glitch. Certain things are starting to happen. He eventually he's at parties, he's doing drugs, and he ends up sleeping with this woman here. And he gets in a fight. He's roaming late night New York City, and then early. Go ahead. Yeah. I was going to say early morning.
My least favorite.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that part was my least favorite part of the movie because
the fight.
It's like, yeah, because it's like, okay, you look back at Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali and realized your fight maneuvers, and that's kind of like a Matrix thing.
I know. That was a bit of a stretch.
Those dudes would have jumped his ass so hard.
Yeah, the landlord's wife being able to recall the law book. Okay, that's certainly believable. I could see that if your brain was using 100%. Okay, you can tell. You can learn how to fight like Bruce Lee, and learn how to dodge a punch like Muhammad Ali and hit him with the left. Okay, that's a little bit much.
Yeah, that's a little much. But
anyways, nonetheless, it's a Hollywood movie. So
yeah, it's
all of a sudden he comes to. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I will say one more thing is that from living in New York for a year and having I had 3 jobs when I was there. I was bartending all night, and I was in a play at the same time, and then I was selling Broadway tickets during the day, like in an office. It was just a day. You get these quick day jobs, and your nights do turn into this kind of thing. Not exactly what he's doing, but New York has this anybody who's watching this right now or who's lived in New York knows that New York has this New York minute, where the minute you walk out of the house, the day passes so quickly, and then 3 days can go by and you're standing on top of the Brooklyn Bridge, and it's like, what happened? Because there's so much to do and there's so much going on. Also, it's interesting that he's standing over the river here, and he's kind of between 2 worlds, and that's where he is at this point in the narrative. He hasn't fully made his way into the finance world. He's also dissociating because he hasn't incorporated the NZT into his body yet, or in a steady regimen. So he's going to have to kind of make a choice here about what he wants to do.
Right. That's a great point. I didn't even think about between 2 worlds, but yeah. So right here, he's beginning to realize that the drug is causing him to have some serious negative side effects. And he's like, man, I couldn't remember the last 18 hours. And he kind of comes to here, and now all of a sudden he's in pain. He realizes that, dang, you can't see it because I'm skipping through, but he's walking with a limp. Yeah. His knuckles are bloody. He's dirty. He's tired, and he has no NZT 48. So he's not all hyped up and in the zone here. So he's kind of now just wandering back. He ends up in his bed, and he is just totally exhausted. And he has the biggest meeting of his life with Van Loon, which was a day in between. So Van Loon gave him some stuff to look at and wanted his expert opinion in basically like 24 hours. Well, he just went and wasted 18 of those hours.
Yeah.
And so now he's back. He's trying to recuperate, and his boss is calling him saying, hey, you got to get here. He's like, I don't know. I feel sick. I'm not going to make. He's like, no, you got to get here. but he's not on the NZT. So
he starts looking at the finance reports, and you can just tell that he doesn't know anything anymore. He's totally back. He's not only brain fogged from from the drugs, but like you're looking at him in the world that he existed in before, where it's just numbers on a page, and he doesn't know what to do. So then he makes this decision to go and search for a source. Also, and one more thing in that last scene, when he was limping, it's like now he's not only gone through the mental awakening, but he's experienced something physical. He's physically awakening to like all sensation, and he's walking that white straight line down the way. But it's also like he's not going forward or backward because he's between the two worlds. And of course, he's messed up this thing. The Robert De Niro can automatically tell right away on the phone that he doesn't, he's lost. And one thing about these finance bros, especially in New York, is that they have to walk this line between getting the meeting and being like bombastic and forthcoming, because like anybody who's watched Billions or known anybody in Wall Street world, it's like they have to have this sort of alpha attitude about they're hungry and they become sort of sharks. But on the other hand, he has to be humble enough where he's going to get the job. So at this point, he's at a low point.
Right. Dr. Vagisil throws in $1 and says, if only Bradley Cooper knew that drinking holy water, taking communion, and going to Vespers have the same effect as his mind boner pills.
Yeah. Well, you know what? He may know that. He may know that in real life, but his film certainly does not depict that.
Right.
So
Sassy Potato throws in $5 and says, good work, guys. Why don't we write our own stories? There's enough knowledge and brain power in this community. Well, we could, certainly.
Some of us do write.
Yeah.
But getting a book deal to get those things published is a whole nother
yeah.
Somebody give us a book deal. Dang.
Yeah. Sassy Potato, you got a publishing company.
Yeah.
But Sassy Potato, thank you so much. Great name. And thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Yeah. Certainly a lot of brain power in this community, but it's harder than you think to get things published. That's a fact. Anyways, moving forward here. So he's not on the juice. No juice going on with Edward Mora, Bradley Cooper here. And his boss is telling him, you got to get in here. Your meeting with Van Loon is in like an hour or so. Here he is like, get your ass in here. Yeah. And so he shows up, and you can see how white he is. Yeah. He ends up throwing up. Van Loon's asking him questions. He has no idea how to answer. He's kind of just pulling stuff out of his ass. He asked one question about the other billionaire. What was the other billionaire's name? What was it? Donald Pierce or something? I forget what it was. Hank Atwood. It was Hank Atwood. That's what it was. It was Atwood. And
his name's Donald Trump. Listen, I don't know about this Bradley Cooper character. But by the way, Trump's name does appear in this movie. I'll show you when we get to it.
So he asked him about Hank Atwood, because this is the person that they're about to merge with and make all this money. And he's like, where was Hank Atwood 2 years ago? Asking him. And he's like, nowhere. Just kind of guessing. He's like, you're right. He came out of nowhere and he shot up. So in 2 years, he made this fortune, this guy named Hank Atwood. And this is going to tie in again to NZT 48 here in just a few. But this guy, again, the right-hand man's always been a little skeptical of him. And so he's pretty much blowing this. And he's like, excuse me. He goes out there and throws up. That's
yes. One point is that, look, it's inverted. So there's a few different scenes in this where the scenery will invert, and that's showing that he's sort of entering another. Whenever we have inversion where the film goes upside down like this in movies, or where we see a character from a God's eye point of view and they're walking underneath us and we see the top of their head. Remember that occurs in the movie Psycho. It shows that the character is experiencing some sort of either psychic break, or they're going somewhere in a different direction in terms of the narrative. And here he goes outside and he throws up. He literally throws upwards, right? How we're looking at it. So that's kind of, I don't know, if I took it to an extreme symbolic realm, then that would be that he is finding revulsion to the upper world here, and it's going to invert, and he's going to go completely base. not based, but based. And he's also experiencing he's trying to get used to the drugs, and he's withdrawing here.
Right, he's withdrawing from it, and he's getting ready to find out here soon that those who take the drug have to stay on it, or they get very sick, and many of them are going to die. And again, we're going to come across that here in just a few. So he's now throwing up. He's back at his apartment. He's like, "Oh my gosh." And so let's see, what's the next scene? Oh, he's kind of leery about the guy that was looking for him. So you can see he's becoming more and more paranoid. And then he's calling people in that little black book. Remember Vernon, the ex-brother-in-law. He starts calling all the names to see where he can potentially find some more NZT. And everybody is in the hospital or dead, except the very last number, which is the guy who's following him, who's actually sitting on the bench right next to him. So he calls the very last number here. Let's see if I can get, come on. There we go. So he calls the very last number, and this guy right here in the back, he answers the phone. And we see this is the guy that's been walking around and following him. And he realized that, and so he gets up and he starts taking off, and the guy is just full sprint chasing him, and he's not sure what's going on.
Yeah.
And so he goes and he meets Melissa. This is his ex-wife. This is the sister of Vernon, the guy who gave him the NZT-48. And she is telling him, look, I did the same thing. I took it, and you have to slowly wean yourself off or you're going to die. This stuff is very, very, yes, it's potent, but it has serious negative health consequences. And she was talking about how everybody who's taken it has either died or gotten sick.
Yeah.
And she was telling him that he needs to get some, and I guess he has another stash. He needs to get to that stash and slowly start to wean himself off. He can't just stop taking it. So she explains all this stuff to him. She explains that she doesn't want to see him anymore, but she wishes him luck. And so now he's on the move, and he ends up, again, he's kind of delirious. There's the guy who he owes $100,000 to. He needs to get him his money, which he really planned on getting him his money, but he's just been busy with other things. So he has one last NZT in his pocket left, and the Russian guy takes it. Then he takes him to the bank, and he gets his $100,000. And the Russian guy's obviously feeling pretty juiced, feeling nice. And he gets back to his girlfriend's office and tells her the whole situation and tells her that, look, I got a secret stash and I need you to go get it. And she's like, okay, I'll go to your apartment. And he's like, well, not exactly at my apartment.
Right.
It's at your apartment. And so he hid all the drugs inside of a seashell inside her apartment so nobody could steal it from him at his apartment. So she said, okay, fine. She's willing to go get it. So she goes back to the apartment, finds the seashell. Let's see here. Gosh dang it. Okay, I got to move this over. It's driving me nuts. There's the seashell. Gets the drug, and she's on her way back, and that same guy starts chasing her. There he is. And this time he has a knife, and he kills these two guys right here. She tried to get these guys to stop, and he kills them.
Hey, yo, stop messing with the lady in the park, yo.
Yeah.
That's literally what they say. Members only jacket. This guy, by the way, looks absolutely psychotic. And so, he hid the drugs in the conch shell in her apartment. I don't know what the symbolism is there. We just talked about the chambered nautilus in my last stream and how that functions as like a symbol for the different ages of mankind because of the spiral. Also, I guess the spiral of the conch shell somehow ties into, I don't know. That's probably too far in terms of the symbolism. But he's still in her office making the phone call, and then he tells her, "Go ahead and take one of the drugs. You'll figure it out. It'll show you."
Yeah. So right after this scene, she gets cornered right here at this rock. And so this guy just killed 2 men, has a knife, and he's after her. She's freaking out. She doesn't know what's going on. She's still on the phone with him, and he tells her, "You need to take one of the pills." So she does, and all of a sudden, there we go. Everything becomes more clear and bright, and she realizes what she needs to do. She needs to get going, and she grabs this little girl and swings her around and cuts the dude's face.
Yeah, which is there's the Trump sign in the background, by the way. It's a Trump ice skating rink.
Ah.
He had to get in there somehow.
So she's able to save herself, and she gets him his, and so they're now both on the juice. You can see in his eyes how bright his eyes are. He's on the juice, and she tells him that basically, look, you need to get off this stuff. I see what it does. It made me do things that weren't me, and I just don't like or trust you that you're on it. You're basically, paraphrasing, in other words, basically saying, look, you're a drug addict. I don't like it, and I can see what this stuff is doing. He's like, look, well, you don't understand how much money I can make. I can get us in a great situation, and then we can be, living a life in a totally different way. Just wait. And she's like, well, you're going to have to do that with somebody else. So she leaves, and then he shows up next to the Russian guy who's outside his window.
Yeah.
And he basically starts giving him a little bit of the NZT, which he's now all about. So then he hires some bodyguards, got these big old dudes to protect him. He's killing it with Van Loon. Everybody's loving him. I love this one too. I was thinking BlackRock, right? It's like, but it's Black VLA.
Black BLA?
Black V.
That's what's up.
It's Van Loon Atwood, Black Van Loon Atwood is what it stands for. But
he is talking about crude.
Yeah, right? And he's saying this is going to be the largest, I forget the way. Basically, it's going to be BlackRock. It's going to be like the largest investment agency in the world. And so I thought that was interesting that it's called Black VLA, and it sounds like they're creating BlackRock. And everything's going real well. He's killing it. And then he goes and hires a chemist for $2 million to make more of these within the next, I forget what was it, 6 months or 60 days or something like that. So he eventually agrees. So now he's making he's making his own NZT.
He approaches the chemist and he says, the chemist says, we're going to need 18 months and clinical trials and all this stuff. And he just bypasses big PHARMA, right? The money can provide for Operation Warp Speed for NZT for him, right? So he just buys off Big Pharma.
Right. So, now the police officer is after him because one of the women that he had sex with on the night where he had that 18-hour blackout, she's dead, and she was murdered inside of a hotel room. And one of the hotel workers identified him as being present. We don't know if he killed her or not, or if the guy who was following them killed her. It's kind of not explicit, but one way or another, she's dead, and people suspect that he did it. And now he had to go to the jail to be bailed out. He got the best lawyer in all of New York. So Steinberg here definitely got him out of jail.
He gets Robert Kardashian to defend him. By the way, this was another thing in the movie. It's like, dude, this guy is going to let you be in a lineup. Are you kidding me? There's no way. But somehow he does it. But then we're going to see where Robert
what he did with his jacket while he was in the lineup.
Because for being just in terms of the practical thing of this guy being this brilliant guy, he messes up in a number of huge ways. One was he was taking the NZT out of his pocket when Wagner Group guy was coming at him, putting his hand on his wrist, and then took the pill. So now, of course, that guy's going to want more NZT, the Russian guy, right? And that becomes his nemesis in the movie. Also, he does that later on in the film. And then the whole thing with the murdered model or whatever, it's like, it seems obvious that the gang stalker guy is the one who killed the woman, and they're going to friend. Whatever is happening, though.
Oh, you think the guy chasing him killed her, or you think the Russian guy killed her?
Yeah. No, I
Which
think
one?
that the guy chasing him killed her.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Yeah, we're going to find out that guy, it's not really a spoiler, but that guy is working for somebody else in the movie we're going to see later on in the film. And that because they're involved
right in this, here, actually, this is a big part because this Atwood guy.
Mergers, the corporate mergers and the high finance thing are obviously blackmail as a part of this. So I mean, remember this occurred in Godfather Part 2, where the senator comes to visit them at Lake Tahoe, and then they set him up with the prostitute. The prostitute gets murdered, and now they've compromised him because he has to do what they want. So it seems like the same thing here. Also, the guy's name is Atwood. So shouts out to Sean Atwood out there on YouTube.
Well, what we find out, and this is again, all the spoilers come out when we do a movie review. So this guy, this Atwood, this huge success within 2 years that Van Loon was upset about, who's getting ready to do this massive merger with, he's not even 60 years old, and he's bent over, walking on a cane, getting ready to basically croak. What turns out is that he took NZT48. That's why he skyrocketed into wealth over a 2-year period through all of his investments and stuff like that. Yes. And the guy who's chasing them is chasing them to get the NZT48 for him so he doesn't die. That's the whole reason why he's chasing him. And so you don't really catch that until towards the end of the movie. But now it makes sense. This guy skyrocketed into fame. He's getting ready to do this merger with Van Loon. He's actually dying because he doesn't have any more NZT. His right-hand man and his driver is the guy who then is chasing Edward Mora and his girlfriend because he wants access to the NZT because he actually wants to rescue his boss. And this is where it comes at the end. At the end of the movie, this guy actually ends up dying. And now he's not trying to kill Edward Mora because his boss is dead. He doesn't need the NZT. But he finds out, and we'll get to it, that Steinberg over here, the lawyer, he actually, when they do the lineup, he actually took the pills out of the guy's jacket, and he kept them for himself, even knowing that he represents Atwood, even though he represents him and he was dying in the hospital, knowing that he needed the pills, he kept them for himself. And so this is a huge part of the movie here.
And we know that he's suffering the same thing because he notices he's walking with a limp, just like Bradley Cooper was in that scene on the bridge. So he's suffering from the same sort of withdrawal there. Like you said, he's decaying before his time. And that was the same thing when he met up with his ex-wife or whoever that girl was. She's also walking with a limp. So
yeah, I just want to say Stranded 360, that's exactly what we've already addressed that, and we do agree with that that premise. Mm-hmm. So NZT, he gets back, Edward Moore, Bradley Cooper here, gets back to his gorgeous hotel room, and it's been ransacked. People have been looking for, obviously, the substances that he keeps on him now. So he doesn't hide them anywhere. He only keeps them on the person. Yeah. And he's like, you know what I need? I need a fortress. So he ends up buying this former gun dealer's New York apartment that has, steel doors, safe rooms, all types of stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is very, very cool. Great view of New York. And so then there's the Russian guy. He wants some more substances. So Atwood doesn't show up for the merger. His wife does, and his wife says, look, he's in the hospital. He's about to die. Once he gets in better health, then we'll finish the merger. And he notices right there. Come on. There it is. That the driver of the Atwoods is the guy who has been chasing him. And he is like, what the heck is going on? And so now he's starting to put together maybe the NZT48 and Atwood are tied together, and that's why that guy's chasing him. Because remember, he called him, and his phone number was the last one on Vernon's in his black book.
Yeah.
So now he's kind of putting those dots together. Here's Steinberg with Cooper, and he puts him in the and there's the lineup.
So,
And when he gives him back his jacket right here, he goes, "Hey, nice jacket. Did you get this? Or I guess like tailored or privately made?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay, very cool." So then he leaves.
Yeah, he
Again,
went
if
to
I was
Savile Row. Yeah, Savile Row tailoring. And I just realized that the whole reason it would be stupid for the lawyer to get him to do the lineup. That wouldn't make sense. So he put him in the lineup. He compromised him and put him in the lineup so he would have to take his jacket off so he could take the drugs. That's because he knows that they're in there. So it seems he did that on purpose. It made him go through the lineup himself. And then he notices later on that the lawyer, like you said, the lawyer is the same lawyer for Carl
Atwood.
Farbman. Yeah, Atwood. Yeah.
For the Atwoods, they're the same. And he told the Atwoods to say that the rumor of this merger was totally fake. It wasn't going to happen. And that's when he realized the dude was working on the other side,
right?
Because he gets back and he's like, "Man, I need another one." So he goes to the bathroom to take one of his pills. It's not there. He's like, "What?" And then he gets this box. It's the hands of his bodyguards. So whoever's after him killed his bodyguards. It's the Russian guy. But here's Charlene Atwood, and she's basically saying all the rumors that, we were going to merge with Van Loon. It's all rumors. None of that was ever true. And then he sees that there it is. There's the lawyer, and he took the pills for himself.
The Biffy there looks exactly like, what's the name of that Our Child woman? She married into the Our Child family. And she was always on Fox News talking about finance. Not Evelyn. Maybe it's Evelyn. Evelyn? No, that's a man. It's somebody. She's obviously supposed to look like one of the Our Child people. And the plot hole is that, that they seal up is that you wonder why he couldn't just sign the merger in from the hospital bed, but because later they could contest it. Because if he's infirm in the hospital, then he wouldn't have a proper state of mind. So then they could contest the merger. But again, when he walks into the bathroom to take his pill or whatever, he starts to be bold with Robert De Niro. De Niro says, "I didn't give you permission to leave." And he's like, "What? I can't go take a piss." So he started to become bold with him. And also it's interesting because he walks out on De Niro like for the third time in the movie.
Right.
So he's, so here he sees the lawyer, like you were saying.
He sees that the lawyer represents the Atwoods, and he suspects that the lawyer took his stash that was in his jacket in a secret pocket.
Yeah.
And now the Russians are there, and they are ready to kill him unless they get more NZT-48.
Right.
So this is now where the movie starts.
Right.
It starts with him on this ledge and explains basically how they got here. He remembers that he has one left in this container, and he goes to get it, and it goes in like the ventilator right there it falls. I'm not going to be able to catch it. Yeah, basically where that silver part is the vent. It falls into that.
The woman's name is Lynn Forrester de Rothschild, by the way. She does look exactly like that woman. And so they made, so of course the Russian guys know a way into the arms dealer's apartment, right? They just cut right through the steel pneumatic doors. But the symbolism here also is that, yes, somebody says forced onto the ledge, like he's on the ledge of sanity. He's on the ledge of his career and the world. But also notice that just like, you guys go back and watch our Devil's Advocate analysis. Remember where John Milton has his office and where he lives at the capstone of the pyramid of the New York law firm. And Edward Mora here has moved from the kind of walk up Chinatown apartment to the fancy, overlooking the park apartment. And he's on the top floor. He's in the penthouse. So he is fully ensconced with the elite society that he's working with.
Yeah, bro. She looks just like that actress.
Doesn't she?
Just like that. No doubt that's who the actress was trying to look like.
Yeah.
No doubt at all. Okay. Let's take it back to the movie. Okay. So now The Russian guy, he wants some more. He doesn't actually have any more to give him. He's getting ready to. He shows that what he does is he dissolves it into a solution and then injects it straight into his blood instead of taking it as a tablet.
Right.
And that he's getting ready to fillet his skin. They're looking for more pills. He threatens that he's getting ready to fillet his skin, and Bradley Cooper stealthily took a butcher knife and stabs him right in the stomach and kills him. And now they start bleeding out, and he realizes
this scene right here is his apotheosis, by the way, because he fully imbibes the vampirical energy. He realizes there are no more pills. The other one went down the drain of life, and the guy's bloodstream has been fully adrenalized by the pill. And so the blood is flowing on the floor, and he slurps up the bloodstream, immediately goes into adrenozone, and realizes that the syringe from the hypodermic is around. He puts that in his mouth so that when the one-eyed Luminate Confirm Moose and Rocco character comes over to check if he's dead, he stabs him through the good eye, and he's able to make his way out of this. But this is like where this is the point in the movie where he is fully now he really has killed somebody, right?
Right.
And so you notice the dichotomy between the bad guy and him. They've switched roles because he was, he was beholden to this guy because he was financing. He was a loan shark. He's also got, it's also weird because he's a loan shark, but he's got on like a Versace sharkskin suit. And now he is beholden to Bradley Cooper before the NZT, just like he and Robert De Niro switch roles. So it's like he's constantly flip-flopping with people on his way up the pyramid.
Yeah, power dynamics. Yeah. And so now he has the epiphany that he needs to drink the blood. And so he drinks the blood. There he is. He's juiced up now. He's got the syringe in his mouth, takes this guy's eye out. Now he's officially blind, kills this guy. And, actually, he gets his partner to shoot him. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he knows all the foreign. Remember, he learned Chinese, Japanese. He learns Mandarin. He learns Russian. And so he says, shoot to your right. And the guy automatically instinctually shoots the other guy.
Yep. And so now he's after him. He's trying to shoot him, and he pushes him through the window here with a piano. Let's see if it shows the whole thing. Okay. So he leaves the apartment, and here the main investor with the merger, he's dead. And so he goes into the waiting room, and there's the guy that's been chasing him for half the movie, him and his girlfriend, willing to kill them for the NZT-48. And he comes up to him, and he's already put the pieces together, and he's like, hey, did you know XYZ? And then basically educate him. Now his boss is dead, so he has no boss, and he has no need to kill Edward, Bradley Cooper. He says, the lawyer took it all. And knowing that your boss was dying, he didn't give it to him. And so that makes him pretty mad. So next scene, they're going over to the lawyer's house, got him tied up on the floor. You see, he's enjoying it.
Yeah. So the guy's got his Otto Skorzeny scar on his face, and he's also a Ronin. He's a masterless samurai. So now he has a new master. So Bradley Cooper's going to be the master. Goes home, goes into the vault. Like you said, ties the guy up. I mean, this guy's fully in this world. He's also got his collar turned up, almost like Dracula in the scene, which is interesting. Takes his money, takes the
money, takes the pills, and now it moves into a new state. You don't really know how much time has passed, but he's got a new haircut.
Yeah. He's
now a politician. He's incredibly successful. They're telling him, oh, we're going to have a fill-out room. We got more people coming to the fundraiser. So he's raising all types of money, and he's like, yeah, the latest investor of the pharmacy, of a particular pharmacy company, is in your office. He goes in there, and it's Robert De Niro. And Robert De Niro now knows the whole game with the NZT-48, and he, being the billionaire, bought the pharmacy that makes it. So now he controls it. And then they went and shut down the chemist that he paid $2 million to make it for himself. He shut that down. And so he's like, hey, I got you. you need to come work for me, Senator, because he's running to become a senator of New York. You need to come work for me as a senator, meaning do what I say whenever I need a favor done, and I'll make sure that you have your supply. And they start walking. I say, let's go to lunch. So they walk out to the car, and Bradley Cooper basically tells him that, look, why don't you just go have a nice time? We're not going to be working together. And he's like, well, good luck finding your stuff. He's like, you don't think that maybe I found, 4 or 5 other ways to make sure I have my stash? And so clearly that's what's happened. He definitely still has more access to the NZT-48. He's clearly in good health, and if he gets off of it, he's going to die.
Yeah, Robert De Niro. De Niro says something interesting here. Also, he says, "You look, your powers of deduction are amazing. They are otherworldly. You don't seem human. I've worked with a lot of guys in finance, and you seem like you're out of this world," which is interesting, because now he jumps from having these powers of deduction to powers of prediction in real time, where he can predict. He says that car is going to crash into the bumper of that other car in 30 seconds. The driver's going to be thrown out the window. So he can predict what's going to happen. And then he says, I see everything. So he's fully transcended up to the top of the pyramid here because he's running for president. De Niro thinks in this system of compromise, right? I'm the Koch brothers and Sackler family, and I've bought the pharmacy. And so now I'm going to own you. I'm going to buy you because you're going to end up being president. And we won't have anything to talk about at first, but later on down the line, we'll have something. Right. And so Bradley Cooper at this point already knows that, yeah, I'm on my way to the presidency. I'm on my way to the top of the political pyramid. But also, this to me is like where the movie sort of switches genres, and you realize that Bradley Cooper as the protagonist has been this Luciferian character all along, because he rises into this like true, like weird kind of Antichrist looking figure who's at the top of the pyramid. He's willing to compromise anybody. He drinks blood. He takes Adreno. He kills people. He does corporate mergers. There's the crude and the black goo. And he can tell this guy who's like his nemesis, you can go to hell. And he literally, when he gets in the car, he tells the driver, go to hell. And he puts him in the thing and pulls the curtain like it's a hearse.
Right.
Like it's the end of De Niro. So you realize that Bradley Cooper is not, you've been kind of rooting, if you're rooting for the movie, watching it, rooting for this character, and you're watching the first time, you realize this guy's not such a great guy.
Right. And that's how it ends. It ends with that realization and that he still has access to his NZT. So he goes out, he has a lunch appointment with, clearly he's back with his girlfriend. And now he's able to speak Cantonese, and he's speaking it to this guy who's incredibly impressed.
Ting Tawa, Szechuan Ting Tawa, right?
And that's the end of the movie. So, yeah, so that basically now does it. We definitely didn't get hit our 2-hour mark like we wanted to. It's 3 hours in, as always. We always freaking stream for 3 hours. Our goal is to do 2 to 2.5. So,
but where else is anybody going to see a 3-hour analysis of Bliss and Limitless going into the entire movie and the symbolism in both movies and tying it into the themes of transhumanism and metaverse and simulation theory, which are all becoming reality every day now.
Right. So how do you want to wrap up the stream? Where do you see some of the connections between the two now that everybody who's following with us are basically tracked and is familiar now with both movies? We see drug addiction. We see, Bliss obviously wasn't necessarily about climbing the pyramid of power, but it certainly related to living in one's fantasy, drug addiction, manipulation, in ways, power of sorts. And then, one's life basically falling apart. In the flip side, Limitless, he's not in a, fantasy world, but it is about acquiring more power, moving up that ladder, becoming somebody he wasn't. And really engaging in both both movies, as they dive deeper into their addiction, begin to dive deeper into criminality. So both movies actually pair the addiction with, you know, divulging into sort of criminal behavior. What would your takeaway be?
Well, I would say that the addiction element, beyond its literal meaning in terms of what it literally is in the films, is something that people can grasp and hold on to. But in a figurative way, it shows that power and mind power and simulation and all this stuff are addictive, just like technology is addictive, just like everybody is sort of prone to these base addictions in that aren't even explicitly narcotics. In the first movie it is, but like you said, both movies sort of play on low characters, right, you know, in a way rising up this ladder of whatever the power structure is. But I think what's interesting is that I still think that Limitless is kind of, I think that I can't watch it without thinking that he's targeted to be this character in the movie. Like someone is making him this character. Now we do see all the stuff about all the people dying in the movie and because they're running out, but it's also like, who is the Vernon character who is working for these people and yet freely gives him this thing and weirdly sees him on the street and knows about his life? He's like the perfect test subject for this. And of course he ends up being president. So it's made in a lab. It's almost like there's a hidden hand behind all this stuff. Also the severed hands in the movie. There's a hidden hand in the movie that's sort of guiding this progress, which is very strange.
Yeah, great point.
I also think that they show two different levels of society, but also the fact that Limitless was made in 2011, the other movies made 10 years later, and that shows the progress of how these things progress in terms of the popular mind. Limitless came out at a time where people knew about this stuff, but it shows the power structure and it shows this, it's kind of enticing and it gets you into this mode of thinking this way. And then the Bliss movie in 2021 shows the kind of end result where now it's not just for the people at the top. This is for like the people at the very bottom. So now it's affected even the homeless people and the people suffering from mental illness, where they can take part in whatever this world is that's coming up and escape their troubles through technology or mind. Also, Limitless is not about technology, which is interesting.
No, it's not.
Technological elements, but it's more of it's almost, even though there's not really any mention of spirituality in the movie, it's almost a spiritual movie because it's moving on this kind of weird inverted spiritual landscape. I mean, look at the characters that are portrayed. Whereas Bliss is like, we have a character who wants something bigger, but he's unable to get there, but it's also like the lowest elements. So two totally different takes on sort of similar themes. And these things keep popping up again. You know, I did the Black Mirror analysis, the latest season of Black Mirror, and it discusses that. Also, there are a couple other movies that talk about this. Is obviously The Matrix deals with this. In this, we had the yellow pill versus the blue pill, right? So we've got pill terminology. If anybody's interested, a couple other movies that deal with this would be Spike Jonze's Her, which is more about the metaverse relations with humanoid robot techno people. That also occurs in Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049. You know, you get your Coombot on the phone. And also another movie that we were talking about before this, I would recommend this movie. It's called Simone. It was made in 2002.
I got to check this one out.
Yeah, it's made by it's got Al Pacino, Evan Rachel Wood. Evan Rachel Wood plays his daughter in the movie, but she ends up playing the very character in the movie Simone in the show Westworld. It's Catherine Keener. It's directed by Andrew Niccol, and Andrew Niccol makes really great movies about these themes. He did Gattaca. He did The Truman Show. He wrote a great movie called Good Kill, which is about the ethics of drone bombing during the War on Terror, and also the movie In Time. So I would recommend his movies. Simone is interesting because it was made in 2002, and it's about Simulation One, Simone. And she is an AI actress that Al Pacino creates and plays through. And one of the things that happened with that movie was when they sold it, they kind of pitched it as a version of a Final Fantasy movie, which is all AI and deep fake and kind of a video game movie. But the people in the studio literally said, we can't make it exactly like this, because the extension of this, it's going to end up being we replace all actors in film.
Right.
And then we started seeing deep fakes in the Star Wars movies and in The Irishman. And now the very thing that they're doing right now with the unions in LA is about AI and the troubles with AI.
Right.
And this movie predicts it 21 years ahead of time. So that's another great one. Again, it's called Simone by Andrew Nichols. So there's a lot of great films in this genre.
Well, how did that relate? There's a movie coming.
Hold on, you cut out. I'm sorry. It's probably me. You cut out. Did I freeze? Are we there? I got no audio. I see you, but I can't hear
me. You hear me now?
There we go. Now I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. I was going to say that. What was it about? You mentioned a movie that Al Pacino was playing Ray Kurzweil when we were talking privately.
Yeah. That's the Simone movie, and basically, it's partly modeled on Ray Kurzweil and a simulated version of Raymond.
This is the movie Simone. That's what when you were mentioning me, I was confused. Oh, it is the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same movie. Yeah, Simone.
Dang, they were already making movies about Ray Kurzweil in the early 2000s.
Yes, and I saw that movie on the plane in 2002 coming back from Europe. And I remember thinking, oh, this is a terrible movie, but it's on a plane. So any movie I watch on a plane usually ends up being good. And I don't know why. Kind of like airplane food. I love airplane food. but I watched this movie and I was blown away at the time, because it seemed like such a stupid idea for a movie at the time. Who would believe in a simulated AI actress, being famous?
Coming. But it's here.
But it was predictive, because now 21 years later, it's here. And it's also about, the worship of fame and how, Hollywood worships itself, and how people will believe anything. She dies in the movie, and then they accuse him of murdering her. And the whole program is, by the way, invented by a Luminate confirmed one-eyed mad scientist who gives it to him, but who gives him this technology before he dies of a brain tumor. And it's Al Pacino sitting in an empty warehouse, basically with screens in front of him, and he's a streamer. He's just making, MDE Sam Hyde videos, like editing real time, but he's making these movies. It's also funny because it's got Winona Ryder in it, and she's the actress that's replaced at the beginning. She's this diva. And there's a line in the movie where she says, I reinvented myself. I went to rehab. And it's like, that ended up happening 3 years later. She was caught stealing from like a Walgreens, and she had like Demerol and all this stuff on her. And then that's when her career fell off. Right. And then I covered with Chase Haggard out there, our friend Chase Haggard. I covered the movie.
Shout out to Chase Haggard.
Yeah, shouts out to Chase, because we covered Darren Aronofsky's Black Swan. Go back to my stream on that, where again the meta version of Winona kind of appears in movies. And by the way, we've covered a Winona Ryder movie. We did Beetlejuice. Remember? Go back to our Beetlejuice stream.
Yep. Yep, we definitely did. Thomas Henderson throws in $10. Said, "Great stream, gentlemen. The Mississippi air is good for BLA's analysis. Top insights from both of you. Thank you." Well, thank you, Thomas Henderson. God bless you, brother. And don't forget, we got a premium members meeting. Is it this Wednesday? Yes, this Wednesday. So, Thomas, don't forget this Wednesday at 7. I will see you there, brother. And then another super chat came in from Dr. Vagisil, threw in $1 and said, "They're putting NZT in the water and making the frogs smart. It all makes sense now."
That's right.
It's true. It's true. Right. Alex tried to tell you. Those of you who don't know, he's making a joke about AZT and the frogs being gay. But yeah, shout out to all the super chatters. Shout out to Thomas Henderson. Shout out to Dr. Vagisil. Shout out to Sassy Potato. Shout out to Dalman. Shout out to our new members, Keenan Beats, Pim Orsovs, and Shaunavers. God bless you guys. Special thank you to Amptown One for gifting 5 memberships today. Thank you very, very much. Shout out to Chase Haggard, and shout out to iPack. And of course, a special shout out to our anonymous sponsor for tonight's stream. Thank you very, very much. That's going to finally do it. BLA, tell the people where they can find you, what's going on, any shameless promotion you got, give it to them.
Well, one more big shout out here, and that's to my wonderful sister whose place I'm at.
Shout out to Ida.
On the Gulf Coast in Mississippi. And the South is where it's at, y'all. You need to come move down south down here with me. And so, yes, you can find me at Bayes Lit Analyzer on YouTube. I just did a stream on the Ocean Gate phenomena that happened in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea in the movie The Abyss. Please go back and watch that, everybody. I've got a bunch coming up, including a Tom Wolfe analysis of Bonfire of the Vanities, and also Boccaccio's Decameron. So we got high IQ stuff. We've got canon of literature stuff. We got plenty of movies coming up.
Are you going to be doing streams while you're down in Mississippi?
We'll see. I mean, there's Boiler Room. Say hi to Duke here. It's the doggy.
Hey, Duke.
So Boiler Room is Thursday. Hopefully I can make that with everybody. Check out Boiler Room on Rockfin.
Yeah, you've been killing it, bro.
Hesher and Ruckus and them doing 4-hour streams at a time on all this stuff happening. There's cats running out. There's dogs running in. And also I've been doing those TNT radio live spots on State of the Nation. And so hopefully I'll be, I'll probably be doing some more streams. I'll be here for about 2 weeks chilling. So tomorrow we plan on going to the model train museum. There's one of those here.
There you go.
No, there's a lot going on down here on the Gulf Coast. So I'll be going to the beach and hanging out at pool parties. And I sincerely hope that, everybody is having a wonderful summer. Just to keep in mind, the last thing I'll say is it's 2023 and it's the summer, and consider where we were 3 years ago, summer of 2020. I always will have that in my mind and think about where we are. Everywhere you go, there are wonderful people. There are people that are very kind, especially down here in the South. And yes. I guess that what's important is to love God, love your neighbors, love your neighbors as yourself, and love your friends and family. So I'm thankful that I have my family down here that I can spend time with. Keep on living, y'all. LIVIN.
That's right. Special shout out to Ida. Shout out to your family, everybody down in the South. I will be back tomorrow with either I have a sponsored stream on Christians for transhumanism, artificial intelligence, and what they call silicon sages, or I'm going to do one on Twitch's new AI Jesus. I'll probably do the sponsored stream. So I will be back tomorrow night, and then we'll do an open panel on Twitch's AI Jesus. I don't know if you guys have you seen this, that there's an AI Jesus over on Twitch that's live 24/7, 365. Yes. You can send in questions, and it's basically, as you would already guess, programmed with all the different social biases, climate change, pride, all that stuff in it. So we're going to do an open panel for that. But I will be back tomorrow night with my stream on Christians for transhumanism, debunking and deconstructing their worldview.
Let me promote you real quick too, because everybody here's watching you. It's your channel. But look, you guys, you got to be thankful for DPH, Church of the Eternal Logos here, because he's especially been killing it with the Manosphere stuff. I mean, look, that stuff, this guy was talking about that stuff for years. Okay. And then here it comes. It's big time. It's in the culture. It's in the zeitgeist. And we have our friend here to break it down for us. And you've been killing it, especially over at Jay's channel. And so keep going, man. Everybody's loving it.
Well, thank you, brother. I do appreciate it. As I'm sure you would appreciate as another head and a reader, avid reader, it is a bit monotonous. So that's why I got to throw back in the transhumanism stuff. We're going to be doing some philosophy stuff. I'm going to get back into my world religion streams, and then we'll mix in some of the manosphere stuff too. So I appreciate that. But it can get a little bit monotonous saying the same thing. I don't know how people like Rollo Tomasi intellectualizes what a man is for 15 years. Like, bro, don't you get tired a little? Don't you want to read something else? Like, but I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I do appreciate Jay for giving me that spot. It ruffled some feathers. So Rollo, he was upset. He tweeted me. He took a screenshot of me and mocked my icons and basically said, it always makes me giggle or laugh when I see how these YouTubers curate their space. They're more concerned with what things look like than what they say. what?
Okay.
And I responded by, maybe I actually have some sincere religious convictions. And do you have anything to say about like my actual words or my ideas, or just about aesthetics?
Yeah.
But anyways, thank you, bro. I do appreciate it. Again, everybody go click on Baselit Analyzer's name right there in the title. Takes you straight to his page. Subscribe, follow him, support him, send him super chats. He does phenomenal work. Great guy. As Rachel says, you guys, great stream fellas. You're awesome, bro. You're awesome. You do incredible work. Really, really appreciate everything you do, and I appreciate all the streams we do. If anybody would like to sponsor another film stream, you can, if you would like, and I'll split some of that with BLA here. So, anyways, guys, I will be back tomorrow night, and that's it. So, as always, until next time, God bless.
God bless. Peace.